Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. We're at 7 o'clock. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke Grimsley is here. Danny Mac gives an approving nod.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Tight.
Yeah.
Concise. And a good morning.
Good morning to you.
I liked it.
You kind of miss the long good mornings, don't you, Dan?
No, I don't. Really don't.
To start your Friday? Come on.
You know what, Brooke? I understand that there's going to be some that are coming our way, but today I liked it. Concise. And again, very tight with it and very to the point. Just a good morning to everybody. I thought it was perfect.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect.
Here's why. Because, number one.
Adorbs.
It is adorbs.
Was adorable.
We've got a lot of guests today. The Cardinals didn't play yesterday. They're going to play the Cubs in the opener of a 4-game series tonight at the ballpark. But we're going to talk to Jay Delsing coming up at 7:15. If that sounds early for Jay, it is, because we're going to take it or leave it at 7:30. If that sounds early for TIOLI, it is, because we're going to talk to one of the Cardinal prospects pitching in the Futures game on Sunday in Arlington. Quinn Mathews, former Stanford pitcher who has zoomed through the Cardinal system this year. He is going to join us at 7:45. At 8:15, we're going to talk some Mizzou football recruiting with Gabe DeArmond of PowerMizzou.com. 8:45, St. Louis City SC interim manager, a.k.a. coach, John Hackworth will join us. And then Blues insider Jeremy Rutherford to talk about the signing of Ryan Suter will join us. So a lot of guests today on a TGIF.
We will be really stacked. I'm excited to talk to Quinn Mathews. Just reading more and more about him. Obviously drafted in the 4th round of the 2023 MLB draft. And the way that he has just so quickly risen through the system, I don't think that I've seen something like that before here recently.
It's pretty cool.
Especially for a pitcher.
Yeah, right. No, it doesn't. And it's got to be a college guy, right? And it's got to be an established college guy. And he pitched in the College World Series. We'll talk to him about throwing 156 pitches in a game against Texas last year. But it's good to see that he is moving through the system. And hopefully, unlike a position player that we're going to talk about in a moment, hopefully he isn't being rushed through the system.
And speaking of a college pitcher, did you guys see Paul Skenes last night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, is he mad that he was taken out with a no-hitter after 7?
I'd say so. I think you're frustrated. I think you respect the manager and you respect the coaching staff. You respect the quote-unquote process, but are you frustrated? Absolutely. You got a chance to make history. And he beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee now has dropped 5 of 7. I was looking at this, though, and this to me is remarkable. He has started now 11 games. Paul Skenes has not left any of them with his team trailing. Not one. He's made 11 starts, and his team has never trailed in the games that he has started. That to me is amazing.
Yeah, 1.90 ERA for him currently in those 11 starts. I'm with you guys. I would have left him in the game to continue to chase the no-hit bid, and they took him out at 99 pitches. Now, Shelton said afterwards that he saw that he was tired. I think that many people would disagree with that because he was just sailing through that inning, the last inning that we saw him in. But why is 100 pitches the magic number in Major League Baseball now? Is there a reason for that?
I have no idea. It's certainly not helping guys stay healthy.
No, and you're just trying to protect him, I guess. But why not let him go make history? I think you do it. I think you leave him in. He's still throwing 98 to 100. Yeah. And Derek Shelton talked about, as you mentioned, that they thought he was getting tired. So my guess was that they looked at body language more so than anything, because I watched the game. He still was throwing upper 90s and nasty stuff. And I don't know, man. I mean, you only get a few shots, you would think, a few shots at history, and you let somebody go. I don't necessarily agree with the move. I understand why they make it, but I don't like the fact that they didn't let him go.
He is pretty darn good. And the Pirates, if they can keep everybody healthy, they're going to be a problem in the National League Central in years to come with that starting pitching that they have. And then you add in the likes of O'Neal Cruz and Ke'Bryan Hayes and more young players on the way. I know the catcher, Henry Davis, hasn't really worked out, but still, they've got a lot of good young talent there and on the way.
I would say they'd be the most dangerous team flying under the radar if they get into postseason play because of their starting pitching. And if you have starting pitching like that, I mean, Paul Skenes can go out and win you game 1 on the road. All of a sudden, you're in the driver's seat. So that's what makes them, I think, a dangerous team moving forward even this year.
Skenes is so much fun to watch, too. He's just absolutely electric. I feel like he's quickly turning into one of the newer faces or bigger faces of Major League Baseball right now. Don't you think that he's becoming one of the most recognizable ones?
No doubt about it. Most strikeouts, by the way, 89 strikeouts through 11 starts in Major League history.
I think he's noticeable because of his mustache, and I'm being dead serious.
And his girlfriend.
Yeah, his girlfriend helps, I think, younger fans, social media-wise. He's active in social media. I don't know if guys like Randy and I that aren't necessarily active in... I mean, we are. We're on it. We see some of the things, but...
You're on the socials.
Yeah, I think the younger generation gravitates towards that stuff. And as you mentioned, his girlfriend is...
What's her name?
Libby Dunn.
Yeah.
She's one of, if not the biggest NIL performer, an LSU gymnast who made more from NIL than any other athlete.
A great gymnast. She's actually going back for her 5th year at LSU. She just announced that, but she talked. I saw an interview recently where one of her cons of returning for her 5th year was that she wouldn't be able to see him as much, but he's focusing on baseball too. So a very talented couple, new it couple, if you will, in sports.
No doubt. Yesterday here on this show, Greg Amsinger, lead anchor from MLB Network, a native of St. Louis, product of the Lindenwood University. Greg was asked by our own Danny Mack what his cohorts, the former major leaguers, Hall of Famers at MLB Network, were saying about the way the Cardinals are utilizing Jordan Walker. And here's what Greg had to say.
Our analysts, our former players, are adamant that the Cardinals screwed him up, messed him up. They can't stand the way the Jordan Walker saga has played out. All the way back to when he was sent down because they wanted him to launch the ball in the air more. Our baseball purists, the guys that broke into the league in the 80s and played long careers successfully hitting baseballs, they hated that approach. Finally, you have this large athlete who is a hit-for-average guy. And we saw that work out fine for Frank Thomas back in the day, Jermaine Dye back in the day, Matt Holliday, for crying out loud, back in the day, large, physical right-handed bats that weren't necessarily dead pull trying to hit homers every AB. So they couldn't stand the mental approach that they wanted Jordan Walker to have at the plate, and they think it messed him up, and it screwed up his evolution as a hitter. So from all of the guys I've talked to, they would love to see Jordan Walker in a different organization. They would love to see this talent get an opportunity somewhere else. Now,
what they're saying is they screwed him up by asking him to hit home runs. Albert Pujols always said, I'm not a home run hitter. I'm a line drive hitter. Tony La Russa told him to be that. George Brett is the only guy to win batting titles in 3 different decades. He won in the 70s. He won in 1980 when he hit .390. And he won one in the 90s as well. So George Brett is a reasonably accomplished hitter, wouldn't you say? It's a 303, 305 career hitter. He's in the Hall of Fame. And he was recently asked about this approach that Major League Baseball has about asking their players to hit with more launch angle.
And it's all the time with hitting coaches and players today. Launch angle to me is if I'm swinging a bat that's coming here and the ball hits top part of the bat, that's the launch angle. If it hits on the bottom part of the bat, it's a grounder. If it hits in the middle of the bat, it's a line drive. But my bat's still coming through the zone on the same plate as the ball. And that's why I didn't strike out a lot. And nowadays, players strike out all the time because I think their bat is in and out of the zone, the same plane as the ball, for just a short period of time. I will go to my grave vowing that my theory is better than they're teaching now.
Well, he is in the Hall of Fame, and he did play the game at a very high level. I don't know who the people are that are calling for launch angle. I don't know if they have the qualifications that George Brett has. If I could find out, maybe I would develop a greater level of respect for what they do in their hitting approach. But right now, I'm going to take George Brett's word for it.
Well, and we also had this sound from Joe Madden yesterday where he talked about this exact thing about the development of players that we're seeing currently in Major League Baseball. And we've discussed this at length, where you can't do the same cookie cutter approach. That's what he said. That's what a lot of people who've been around for a long time, hitting coaches, different things like that, former players, you can't do that same cookie cutter approach for every single person. But it seems like making contact isn't where the money is anymore, and it's all about launch angle.
Yeah, they don't care about strikeouts. They just don't. And that's part of the game the way it is today. I think my only concern with Jordan Walker, and I don't know the answer to this, is how many voices are in his ear. And when you go up and down, I'm more of looking at him. I think he'll figure it out mentally or physically. I do. And I understand why they want him to get the ball in the air. That's the way the game is played. My concern would be is going up and down mentally. How does he respond to that? And how many voices are in his ear? Because sometimes you can have way too many points of opinion on you need to do this. You need to open up. You need to take the ball the other way. You need to get launch angle. That, guys, would be my concern, is just how many voices right now are in his ear. And I don't have the answer to that. Is it just one guy? Is it the hitting coach down there? Is it more of some of the scouts that come through and pop in and pop out? Is it looking at tape and the major league staff is giving him some kind of input? But that would be my concern, is that sometimes you can just have too many voices in your ear, and that leads to thinking instead of just reacting and doing that at the plate.
Two examples. Colton Wong, Paul DeYoung. We heard the exact same thing, didn't we? So many voices in their ears. And for some players can really process all of that stuff, and it doesn't bother them. Other players are essentially see ball, hit ball. And they don't want to think up there.
Yeah, I think the other part of it is that he's 22 years old, so that is a lot for him to navigate. I can understand, especially with all the different voices of people telling you what you need to do, this or that, getting back to what got you there in the first place and having to navigate what works and what doesn't. But I understand at 22 years old, he wants to come back to the majors, obviously, but you hear over and over again, this is what we need from you specifically, and you hear launch angle. That's the word that we hear over and over and over again, and he's trying to get back to there, I assume, but it's just still not working out for him. I understand that the production has to be there, but he is 22, and that is a lot to navigate.
Yeah, 22 is, to me, he's still so young. He'd be one of the youngest players in Major League Baseball if he was up right now. On the flip side, though, what do the Cardinals need, or what are they looking for, is a right-handed power hitting, preferably outfielder, and you thought you were going to have that when you're left-handed heavy. Now the Cardinals are 24-18 since the Ali ejection, so they're playing very well, averaging over 4 runs a game, but still, that's a bat that you would love in your lineup.
Yeah, and I don't know how they get him to be productive. See, that's the other thing. We don't know. We look at it and we say, okay, the Cardinals are telling him this, this, and this. Maybe with the Cardinals, I mean, we look at Brendan Donovan. What he's doing is pretty darn good. There are some players on this team, Alec Burleson, what they're telling him to do, or somebody's telling him to do, is working. So maybe this is a Jordan Walker thing, too.
That's where I'm going, because if you look at developed players right now, the Cardinals have a bunch in their lineup. We just don't talk about it. You talk about the negative, which is Jordan Walker right now. But as you mentioned, that's 2 of the guys. I'd go with Nolan Gorman. I'd go Ivan Herrera. You know, there's some others that they are developing here at the major league level, and they're taking another step in their careers. So there are some positives along the way here, too.
And it took some time, especially if you look at Alec Burleson. Look at how much time it took for him to grow and to develop into what we're seeing currently right now this season, which has been a fantastic season for him. And at the end of the day, the big discussion here is Jordan Walker going to get traded? I personally do not think so. I know that there is never really an untouchable, right? If you have the perfect situation where maybe you can get a big trade out of it, where you really get a huge return for it, I just don't see Jordan Walker as a trade piece. I think that they will not give up on him. I think they're going to continue to develop him, and that's the big point here.
There isn't a right-handed hitter walking through that door.
No. If you're an opposing team, just think at it from their point of view. And let's say that you are going to give up a lot. To me, the first player I'm asking for is Jordan Walker. Yeah. Still, he's 22 years old, saying if we can get this guy that was the former #1 overall prospect in baseball, maybe if he gets in our system, turn the page on what happened in St. Louis, then we got something. And I think every team, the first name they'd be asking about is Jordan Walker. I really do.
Yeah. By the way, in all of Major League Baseball, Nolan Gorman is 2nd in strikeouts this year. Paul Goldschmidt is 6th. So in your 9, you've got 2 of the top 6 guys in all of baseball that have struck out.
The other part of developing players, what about Mason Wynn?
Yeah, another good example.
They are developing players, and to your point, Randy, that's why I make it. Maybe this is a Jordan Walker issue right now, and just hit a wall and then has to get through that, and all of a sudden he's part of the major league team.
That's Dan, that's Brooke, I'm Randy, and we are off and running on this edition of the Opening Drive. Coming up, we're going to talk some golf. The British Open, or the Open as they call it now, is just 1 week away, and we're going to talk to Jay Delsing about that and more next on 101 ESPN. Jay Delsing and Danny Mack will have golf with Jay Delsing, and every Friday morning, Jay joins us to talk about what's going on in the golf world. The Open is just 1 week away. The Scottish Open going on this weekend. And Jay, good morning. First of all, how you doing?
Good, Randy. You totally screwed up my swing. I didn't realize that if I ate half of Danny Mack's carrot cake that I need to get bigger pants, and I couldn't turn as well.
Let's admit it. It wasn't half. It was the whole.
Well, I mean, and the problem was we didn't have anything to eat it with. So we had to find I had to get hosed down afterwards, too. I had icing from ear to ear.
That is true. We couldn't find where we were at. We didn't have a spoon. We didn't have a fork. We didn't have a knife. I said, dude, you got to try it. And Jay just said, the hell with it, and went in with the hands.
Wow.
That's how good it was.
Proud of you guys.
Yeah, it was really good, too. Don't bring those around too often, though. I have no off button.
Hey, Jay, we got a lot to cover, but I want to start with this. What was your reaction when you found out that Keegan Bradley is going to be I said that in a derisive way, didn't I? What did you think of when you heard that Keegan Bradley is going to be the captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team?
Well, guys, what's odd about the whole Ryder Cup system is the PGA of America owns this franchise, and they're the ones that make these selections. And as players go through the system, they play in the Ryder Cup and things like that, an order kind of develops as to, who's expected to get a captaincy on a time frame basis. And this Ryder Cup was all carved out for Phil Mickelson. It was perfect. He was going to be the captain. It was in New York where he was, I don't know, somewhat beloved, whatever he was up there. And so Liv changed everything. And what's interesting about it is that for whatever reason, and probably because Jack Nicklaus did not have a phenomenal record that would commiserate the rest of his career in the Ryder Cups. And so Tiger has never adopted the Ryder Cup as anything significant for him. I'm not saying he doesn't like the red, white, and blue and all this other stuff, so don't send me emails. But I'm just saying he just doesn't seem to focus on it as much. And I never thought that he was going to take this captaincy, and I know it was offered to him, and he turned it down. And unfortunately, because of Liv and because of some of there's almost a void, you guys, in players that should qualify for the captaincy right now. Now, Keegan Bradley is not he definitely deserves it, but he's much. If things would have played out the way they thought they would have played out, Keegan Bradley would be a captain probably 2 or 4 years later than he is now. He's going to be all fired up. I don't know if he's I'm a huge Zach Johnson fan, but guys, when I watched Zach Johnson over at Marco Simone in Italy last year, I felt like he was completely overmatched. I felt like there was disorganization. We weren't prepared. We came out flat. Just all the things that in a 3-day event you just can't have happen. So I think the bottom line is, guys, is that what makes a golfer who really hasn't had to manage anything other than himself a good captain? And you look at the captains that have done well, Azinger and Steve Stricker and a few of those guys, they all went out and adopted other strategies. They've had people help them try to organize personalities with like personalities and guys that are going to mesh. And so hopefully Keegan does that. I mean, his desire to represent the red, white, and blue and the desire to win will be at as high as anyone's. But we've seen before, desire alone doesn't get the job done.
Yeah, another big part of it is selecting who will be on the team. I know that there's plenty of time for this, but if you were Keegan Bradley, who are you selecting to be on the team?
Oh, I got to tell you, Brooke, right now, and that's a great point for me. Right now, I'm going straight to Liv, and I'm taking DeChambeau and Koepka for sure. I'm taking those guys for sure, and because I want to win the Ryder Cup, and I want the best players playing. I mean, the fact that DeChambeau wasn't on the last Ryder Cup team, I think, was a big miss. But it was if you watch the Netflix series, Zach Johnson went straight according to the old boys network. He went with JT and Spieth and Ricky and look, they're good guys, great players and everything, right? But their form wasn't very good. And you had a guy that was probably the hottest player in all of golf, Lucas Glover, that got left off the team. So I don't know, man. I would be very, very leery of who's playing well at the time and make sure I get them on the team. And also, guys, get the team together and get them playing the golf course more than just a couple of times before the thing starts. That's a huge advantage.
Jay, the PGA Tour makes a stop at the Scottish Open. It's the week prior to the British Open. It's links golf. Can you describe for average fans out there what the difference is if they're watching on a Saturday in the United States or a Sunday as opposed to what they'll see this Saturday and this Sunday?
Yeah, guys, so imagine the baseball fields, well, anybody that our generation grew up on. No water, and for the most part, all sorts of uneven ground. The British and the Scottish Opens, the golf courses are usually left to play as the weather dictates. So we just got rain at the Scottish Open, I think. But it's actually, they're a little ahead of us. So I think it was either Tuesday night or Wednesday. And it softened the golf course up. And then after that front blew in, yesterday they had no wind whatsoever. I mean, no wind. So you were seeing the scores just – so, guys, if there's not wind, these golf courses are going to be so gettable. If the wind blows, it's also chillier over there. I think I think Rory came out and did his press conference, and there was a lot to unpack there as well, but it was 54 degrees and pouring rain. And so the weather dictates a lot about what the golf course is like. A lot of uneven lies, a lot of weird bounces. The bunkers, the fairway bunkers, you guys, and even greenside bunkers are stacked sod. So imagine having you've seen a piece of sod. Imagine 10 or 15 pieces of sod stacked on top of each other in circles, which is kind of a nightmare because the ball seems to always go up against the side of it. And oftentimes over there, guys, you can't even play out towards the flag. You actually have to go backwards, and you want to talk about really aggravating you, man. When you got to make a swing and you're headed the wrong way, and you're headed the wrong way, it's not a great feeling.
Jay, can this tournament, the Scottish Open, inform us at all as to what might happen next week when the British Open takes place at Royal Troon?
It's similar, Randy, but I think the weather changes so quickly over there that it could and it can't, right? I mean, I'm not plugged into what the weather's like, but I remember when I went over and played in the British. I played in the Scottish and the British back in 1995, and we played Carnoustie, which is one of the hardest golf courses I've ever played. And I was sitting having a beer after the round, and some of the locals were talking to me, and I said, "Man, does the wind always blow this hard?" And they looked at me like, "This isn't wind. They called it a wee zephyr." And I'm like, "A wee zephyr? Give me a break. I don't even know what that is." But guys, when the wind doesn't blow, all the trees are bent at like a 30-degree angle because the wind blows so hard and so often over there, and generally in the same direction. So, yeah, it's all going to be on the wind because the wind is the main thing that raises scores on the PGA Tour and in professional golf.
Jay, you'll be playing in the Ascension Charity Classic. It's not that far away. I am curious, how's your preparation going for that?
My body's holding up, Danny. My body's holding up. It's tentative day to day, as they say, but pretty good. I've had a club in my hand every day for the last, 3 weeks now, and my short game's coming around. My speed and power is pretty good for an old guy, and so I'm really looking forward to it. But if you come out and follow me, just stay behind me. So there's still some of those loose ones come out, and that ball stings when it hits you.
What does Sunday morning show look like?
So we went out to Elevate Golf, which is a really super cool training center out at Lake St. Louis, and they're revolutionizing the way you take lessons because they do it on time. They have a remote training aspect to it. So we went out there, and we also had Karen Stupple, really a cool person. So she grew up in Kent, England. She won the Women's British Open in 2004. But guys, as a young girl, her dad made her choose between helping her mom with dishes or caddying for her around the house. And so she took up caddying and wound up playing professional golf, and then decided when she was 17 to leave home and come to America, and she wound up at Arkansas State playing golf. So she had an interesting story and kind of culture shock with the way that she grew up.
Looking forward to that. As always, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us a little bit early today, and have a great weekend, Jay.
You guys too. Happy Friday, guys.
Same to you. That's Jay Delsing with us on the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Coming up, get your text in to the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646, 314-399.
Yo-ho!
Yo-ho.
There it is.
Right away.
TIOLI next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rockio with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals are back in action after a much-needed day off yesterday as they start a 4-game series against the Cubs to close out the first half of the season. First pitch for that game will be 7:15 p.m. tonight, and it is on Apple TV+. Also back in action this weekend, it is St. Louis City SC taking on the Vancouver FC, the Whitecaps, and you can catch that game at 7:30 down at City Park, and you can also catch the interim head coach John Hackworth joining Randy, Danny, and Brooke here on the opening drive coming up at 8:45. That is your Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
You can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Text in right now for Take It or Leave It. Brooke, Dan, Matthew, and Randy. Kids, I know that baseball people don't look at the standings because it's way too early to look at the standings. They just put their head down and play. But I will tell people that are driving down to the ballpark for today's action. You know who you are as you listen from 7 to 10 every day on 101 ESPN. That the New York Mets right now hold the third wild card spot in the National League. They've gone 23-10, a Major League best 23-10. With 6 runs per game since June 3rd. 23-10 and 6 runs per game are both MLB bests. Take it or leave it, the Mets are a scary postseason proposition.
Ooh.
I don't think they're that impressive, but
I mean, they're on a run.
They're on a run, yeah.
It's probably the biggest turnaround in the first half of anybody.
They were 10 games under, Dan.
Including the Cardinals.
Yeah.
You know, the Cardinals had this huge turnaround, but I'm not sure enough people have paid attention to the Mets. I guess the question would be, can they hold it up? A lot of times when teams make this kind of run, the Cardinals have flipped the script a little bit. We'll see if it holds up. But when teams push so hard, it's like they run out of gas. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I wonder if the Cardinals or the Mets will be one of those teams that just kind of run out of gas as they try to get back into this race.
I'll take it, though. I think that with this momentum they have right now, maybe they could pull something off. So
you know who might be the game 1 starter for the Mets in a playoff series? Jose Quintana.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. That's why I'm kind of a little skittish
That's
on
why they don't really, you look at them on paper and they aren't that impressive, but they're playing really well. Yeah. And by the way, the 6 runs a game, they were talking about trading Pete Alonso on June 3rd.
Can't do that now.
He's not going anywhere.
No.
Their lineup really, aside, Lindor is playing better, but it's not a lineup like the Phillies. You look down the list of names, or the Dodgers, you say, wow, you know they're going to score a bunch. The Mets have those 2, and Marte's on the shelf right now. They don't really have an overwhelming lineup, but
Phillies,
they're doing it.
Well, they just got healthy, too, and the Phillies sweep the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And with all the things that we talk about, the money that's spent by the Dodgers and the guys that are on the injured list coming back, which does, make you think, okay, they're going to be even better than what they are here in the first half of the season.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was thinking.
Boy, both these teams are scary propositions going into postseason play.
And the Rangers have gotten better, too. I know they lost last night, but they were on a roll for a little bit. So we talked about Paul Skenes earlier. Take it or leave it, he should start the All-Star game.
Oh, I'm going to take that. I think it'd be great for baseball, and it's normal days rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the other part that you have to consider is that if I'm the Pirates, and let's say he pitched on Sunday, I'm calling the manager of from Torey Lovello. I'm calling him and saying, don't you touch my guy.
Right.
No chance is he going to pitch in that game. Let him get introduced or whatever, but if he's normal days rest and it's a good thing for baseball and they're trying to make him maybe the face of baseball, or at least one of them, I take it. He's got to start the National League All-Star game.
100% agree. And Rob Manfred needs to go to the owners and say, okay, I know you love your analytics people, but you know what? People are showing up to watch this guy pitch. He's throwing 7 innings. He's a legitimate starting pitcher. Dump your stupid 5 innings or 4 1/3 innings, and let's get some guys that throw 7 and are really, really good, because that's dollars right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Won't happen, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
He'll probably go 2 innings, I would imagine.
Yeah.
2 innings, probably that.
There might be 5 instances, and Skenes is probably involved with 3 of them, where there's a must-see TV pitching pairing in the National League right now.
I'd say every time he's...
Yeah, but there's not many teams. Like, is there, with the Cardinals, all due respect, does somebody in Dubuque want to watch him against our number one? I don't, against Sonny Gray. But if you have him when Kershaw comes back, if you have Paul Skenes against Zach Wheeler,
sure,
that's what
Everybody's talking about
yeah.
it.
All right, take it or leave it, and let me give you a little background here. The Cardinals are going with extra rest for their pitchers. You got Sonny Gray tonight, Lance Lynn in Game 2, Kyle Gibson Game 3, Miles Michaelis Game 4. You do have to mix in a doubleheader, but take it or leave it. The Cardinals take 3 of 4. They're going to face Hendricks. They're going to face Tyon for sure, Games 1 and 4. Still, the Cubs are unsure what they're going to do in Games 2 and 3, but Cardinals take 3 out of 4 this weekend.
Remember when Kyle Hendricks was the big train Walter Johnson against the Cardinals?
Yes, they couldn't. It was like a soft tossing lefty. They couldn't figure that guy out either.
But I'm going to take that. I'm going to say they do get 3 out of 4.
I'm going to take it too. And you don't have Cody Bellinger this weekend.
Right.
That's another one.
And
that's right.
You missed out. Steele was magnificent last night for them, and you missed out on both Steele and Imanaga, right?
Yes.
So
they both pitched against Baltimore.
Yeah, so that's good.
That's nice.
Yep. Matthew, what do you got there on the text line?
Take it or leave it. Now that we are halfway through the season, we see that the Cardinals made all the right moves at last year's deadline and over the offseason. They would not be any better with the players they let go.
I'll take that.
Yeah,
Not that they have improved substantially because of those trades, but they did. John King has been nice for them. They got good work out of Kloffenstein when he came up for a little bit. There was another trade guy that they're getting. They got a little bit of major league work out of, but had they got nothing for Flaherty and Montgomery and Jordan Hicks and Chris Stratton, if they would have gotten nothing for those guys, then those players wouldn't have been around to help. And I would say King probably has been the best of the guys for the major league team right now that they got in those trades. Am I missing somebody here?
No, I think you nailed it.
So.
I think you nailed it. What about Jack Flaherty back to St. Louis? Going back to last year with St. Louis, he's pitched well at times for the Tigers.
Been great.
And Jordan Hicks is another one, although his ERA in July is over 7. It's progressively gotten worse as he's gone on. So we'll see how that plays out in the second half.
I'll bet you he winds up in the bullpen. When Robbie Ray comes back, and they've got Snell back pitching really well, and they'll get Ray and Alex Cobb back, I'm betting that Hicksy's probably the guy that winds up in the bullpen.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Take it or leave it. The Cardinals didn't break Walker. He had a monster second half last year after he came back up. This is just natural regression young players go through.
I'm going to take that.
It's a sophomore slump.
If it was a sophomore slump, if they had not said, the Cardinals had not said he needs to change his swing, I could buy that he was just having a slump. But the Cardinals wanted him to change. And so I'm thinking that there's probably something mechanically here that happened between either the end of last year or the start of this year, or he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do.
I'm not an expert, but one of the things that I saw is that he was pulling off every pitch. So you could pitch him outer half or waste a pitch, slider, outer half, diving away, and his front side was opening up, which just tells me he's trying to pull the ball. He's trying to get it in the air. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. It's just going on what I see, and having been around it a long time, that would be of concern for me.
And that's what they want him to do. They want him to pull the ball with power.
Yep.
Get it up in the air and hit home runs. So he's Matt Holliday, and BK made this comment. Matt Holliday and Greg Amsinger said this too. That might be the guy that you want to work with Jordan Walker is Matt Holliday.
He's worked with Cody Bellinger. He's worked with some of the biggest names in baseball. I wouldn't mind seeing him go there. Why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're any major league player, and if Matt Holliday says, come on down to Stillwater, get in our batting cage, work out in the offseason, why wouldn't you want to do it?
So he spent the majority of this offseason actually in Jupiter training at the Cardinals complex, and he worked with Jose Oquendo on things defensively. Do you think that maybe the focusing too much on things defensively, which he needed to, that was one of the things that he needed to improve on is defensively in the outfield. Do you think maybe he focused a little bit too much on that this offseason rather than his approach at the plate?
I don't. You can do both, I would hope.
I would hope that too. Although there are times that major league players, when they switch positions, it does lend itself to taking their defense to their offense. But I don't think it would be because of that you have this much of a precipitous decline in what we've seen offensively with Walker. I just don't think so.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Rudy.
Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, the Cardinals have one of their top prospects pitching in the Futures game on Sunday in Arlington. We're going to talk to that pitcher, Quinn Mathews of Springfield, next on 101 ESPN.
is 1-2. Ties up Flores. Third K for Quinn Mathews to the back foot. 2-2. Gilmet strikes out. 11 Ks for Quinn Mathews. At the end of the last half inning on his own. Ties up Kennedy. Moore hangs on, and it is 16 strikeouts from Quinn Mathews. 2-2 again. Bouncing ball left side, and Tommy Troy finishes a complete game from Quinn Mathews.
Welcome back to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis with Brooke Grimsley and Dan McLaughlin. I'm Randy Carricker, and you heard those highlights from Quinn Mathews from the College World Series last year when he was a member of the Stanford Cardinal. Now Quinn Mathews in the Cardinals organization, a fourth-rounder last year who has zoomed through the system this year. And Quinn joins us now as he gets ready to take off for Arlington in the Futures game tomorrow. Quinn, thanks for your time this morning. How you doing?
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me.
We're excited about it. How excited are you about being able to pitch in the Futures game?
I'm pretty fired up now. It's definitely, starting to sink in a little bit. It's an honor to go out there and hopefully, put on a show as a St. Louis Cardinal and just represent the organization and what we have in the minor leagues.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Quinn. Obviously, as Randy said, you have quickly gone through the Cardinals organization and their system. I mean, you were drafted last year, then you went from Palm Beach to Peoria and then Double-A. What has that experience been like for you?
It's definitely been a lot through the first, 14, 15 weeks of the season, having jumped now twice from Palm Beach to Peoria and now Peoria to Springfield. It's definitely been a lot, but just trying to enjoy the process as much as possible. And every time I go out there, just try and learn as much as possible because at the end of the day, that's what's going to, hopefully continuing allowing me to progress.
And what are some of those things that you need to refine to eventually make it to AAA or even make that jump to the big leagues?
Unfortunately, probably everything. I mean, being around now, Newt Bar and Edmund, they're exceptionally good at, the small things, and being around even our best hitters, they're really good at the small things. And as a pitcher, to get those guys out consistently, I'm probably going to need to refine almost everything.
Quinn Mathews with us on 101 ESPN. So did you and Tommy Edmond commiserate about Stanford?
Yeah, it's pretty funny just talking about things and seeing how, these places, they do change, but they don't change. So it's really funny now just like telling stories about certain areas on campus and stuff like that where the team hung out and, classes that we've taken and stuff like that, where it's just like I said, you feel like it changes so quickly, but at the end of the day, it's honestly the same place that it was when he went there and then when I went there.
Hey, Quinn, this is the first time we've talked to you, so apologies because I'm sure you get asked all the time about the 156 pitch outing, but that just doesn't happen in baseball anymore. What was that like for you? And most importantly, how did your body react to that?
Yeah, it was definitely, out of the ordinary nowadays. People are super concerned about pitch count and, whatever it might be, 85, 100, 110, whatever people have their opinions about. And I think the season up until that point had built me up for that moment. And, I was throwing a lot of pitches week in and week out. The week before, I'd thrown 180 pitches to get, help the team get through the regional. Wow. So, like I said, I'd kind of been building up to that moment, and fortunately, my body was able to get me through the game, get the team through the game, and let us play on Monday. So, I don't know. It was just kind of the moment I'd been working for physically, and the body let me do it.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, you talked about learning a lot from Newt Bar and the other guys that have been through the system down there as well. What is some advice that they have given you about coming up to the majors when you eventually do?
I don't think I've really received any advice typically. I'm more so just trying to pick their brains. And like I said, they take very professional at-bats every time they go up there, whether they, strike out or hit a homer. They do little things really well. And like I said, just watching these guys and now talking to these guys as teammates, I'm just trying to pick their brains as much as possible because I'm trying to just understand what the hitters are looking to do. Because if, you're able to get into the mind of the opposition or the other side, then you can kind of adjust or at least try and think through a thought process that they're going through each at-bat and each pitch. So just like I said, small things that they do really well and that they're looking for that they capitalize on, and unfortunately they don't miss. Those are the things that I'm trying to learn.
It's always interesting to find out a pregame routine for a starting pitcher. What is yours like?
It's pretty generic, honestly. About an hour and a half before first pitch, I'll start moving around, stretching for 15, 20 minutes, and then probably start hydrating a little bit. I throw some plyo balls, and then just play catch, get off the mound, and then hopefully go through strike one.
Do you have any superstitions? Anything that you have to do or make sure that you do in that routine?
Yeah, I mean, the one that's probably most important is, putting the right cleat on first and tying the right cleat. That's probably the big one, I would say. I don't think anything else I do is superstitious. I always wear long sleeves as well, no matter how hot it is, which, some people will question a little bit. But I think just the right cleat, that's probably the only one that I have now.
That's really interesting. Well, Rob Raines has a great story about you and really what has helped you get to this point in your career. And he talked about in this article, and you talked about as well, about how competitive your family is with just about everything, including Scrabble. How much has the competitiveness with your family helped you with your baseball career?
It's probably allowed me to be the player I am. I think it's probably my strongest attribute, to be honest with you. I think the competitiveness is one of the things that allows me to, do what I do. I don't know if I'm physically as gifted as, people probably think I am. I think it's just the competitive nature and the willingness to be the best and the want to be the best all the time and everything, that it's the driving force behind everything that I've done and everything that I do. And it's probably helped me, be the baseball player I am.
Quinn, we'll be watching the Futures game tomorrow, Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. We'll see it on MLB Network. When you get into the game, what's your favorite pitch? What sort of a repertoire do you have?
My favorite pitch is probably the strike, to be honest with you. Those really help. Doesn't matter what type of pitch I throw, as long as, they're competitive pitches. I've got 4 of them that are different, the fastball, changeup, curveball, slider. I don't really think I have a favorite one anymore. That was more so, I would say, a college thing now. Like I said, hitters are too good. They adjust too quickly. They set game plans and they stick to them. So you have to be willing to adjust each and every time. You face a guy, and now I'm learning each and every pitch. So I wouldn't really say I have a favorite one anymore, but, the strike is, if I did have to pick, it'd be the strike.
You're a left-hander. Is there a major league pitcher that you have patterned your game after or that you watch a lot?
I don't know if I've patterned my game after. I really enjoy watching Max Fried. He's, a SoCal kid. He's left-handed. And, my stuff in my arsenal isn't as good as his. But, that was the guy for probably the last 5 years or so that I've really enjoyed watching, take the mound and do his thing. And he's hyper competitive, so it's always fun to see, Max Fried pitch.
You mentioned that your family was influential in getting you to this level. Were there baseball people that were influential along the way, and some of those coaches or mentors along the way?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in my life that have influenced me and impacted me. There's probably too many to name on this radio show, unfortunately. But like I tell everyone, I've always been blessed to find the right people when I needed them most. So I think, friends, family, coaches, everyone has impacted me in a normally a good way, because like I said, I've been lucky and I've been fortunate to just get surrounded by some of the best people you could ask for when I needed them most. So, yeah, like I said, there's probably too many to name, unfortunately.
In the article, you mentioned that your sister, when I was talking about the competitiveness with Scrabble, that especially you and your sister were very competitive. Do you still find a way to play Scrabble with her? I know you can play. I'm sure there's like an app or something like that. Is there any competitive games that you guys still are able to play?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more of like an off-season thing. Our family is pretty old school, unfortunately, so we definitely need the board, and we need to see the tiles and spin the board around so the next person can play. But no, we definitely get our games in the off-season. Like I said, we still got to get a definitive dictionary that we're all content with, because each and every one has a different set of words, and I swear, it's like a strike zone for me, where I feel like every word that I think is valid is never valid, and for whatever reason, they always find words that are valid, and I don't think they're valid. So I'll never be content. So we definitely need to set a hard dictionary at some point.
Hey, Quinn, one of the things that you've said about your minor league stops, with all due respect to the cities, is we need to get out of here as quickly as possible, which I think is a great approach. Have you kind of put yourself on a timeline to get here to St. Louis?
No, absolutely not. I don't think that's fair for myself to do so, because then you start amplifying each and every start. You start nitpicking little things versus just trusting the process, learning as much as possible. And if and when that does happen, then just enjoying the moment. Like I said, if you're so worried about a set time and a set date that you're like, hey, I need to be up here by September of 2024 or September of 2025, then like I said, little things start to snowball and starts to amplify in your brain, when in reality, if you're just doing your due diligence and trusting the process at the end of the day, then if it was supposed to work out, it was supposed to work out. And if not, well, then hopefully you adjust or reset.
Love that approach. And Quinn, savor tomorrow. Take it in. Have fun at the Futures game. We'll be watching and can't wait to see you when you get here to St. Louis. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for your time.
You bet. Take care. That's Cardinal left-hander Quinn Mathews of Springfield. He's had a terrific minor league season so far, playing in the Futures game tomorrow in Texas. So far this year, 3-1 at Palm Beach with a 1.47, promoted after 6 starts. Went to Peoria, 7 starts, 3-1 with a 2.68. Now he's made a couple of starts in Springfield, and he doesn't have a decision yet with a 2.53 earned run average. And oh, by the way, the Cardinals, we all talk about swing and miss, 120 strikeouts in 85 innings in the minors this year for Quinn Mathews.
That's incredible. I love what he had to say, too, about maybe he's not the most physically gifted, but it's his competitive nature that really pushes him. I know that you would think, okay, yeah, every professional athlete is obviously competitive, but you guys have seen so many of the guys who really are able to take it to the next level. What do they all have in common?
They find a way.
Yes.
To me, I mean, they find a way. They may not be the most most physically gifted, but they find a way. And I also think they are able. Let's just say this: if you get to this level, even AA, you're a hell of a player. I mean, so you can say, I'm not the most physically gifted. Well, yeah, you are. You're still pretty good.
But you know who would tell you that, and you knew him well, was Bruce Suter. Bruce Suter was not a physically gifted individual. He had the pitch, he had the huge hands, and Fred Martin taught him the split finger fastball. But man, was he intense as a competitor.
You find a way, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're that competitive, and a lot of these guys are not all. Just about all are so competitive, they find a way. I mean, that's just the way it is that you get to that level and you're enticed. The carrot is there to maybe for these guys make money, a lot of it, and to win. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Be a good teammate and win.
And the most unbelievable guys are the ones who aren't intensely competitive, but are so incredibly gifted, talking to you, J.D. Drew, that make it to the majors and have a really good career despite not being intensely competitive. He was, what a talent he was.
Yeah.
Oh, he was awesome.
He was.
Yeah, he sat there. I remember Will Clark, we were on the plane, and he gave it to JD. I mean, it was uncomfortable, but it was kind of fun to watch, Just come on, man, let's go. But he was so physically gifted, it was incredible.
Unbelievable. That's Dan, that's Brooke, and thanks to Quinn Mathews, who will return to Springfield, and hopefully we'll see him here in the very near future. Coming up, Jim Bowden at The Athletic has some pitchers that he thinks the Cardinals should be pursuing. That's next on 101 ESPN. Was talking to a friend yesterday, as a matter of fact, that actually has had their air conditioning go out already this summer. And fortunately for them, it was during the reasonable time of year. But it does get unreasonably hot in St. Louis in July, August, September. And with the warm St. Louis summers as they are, you need to make sure that your air conditioner is in good shape. That's why you need to get in touch with my friends at Hoffman Brothers. Hoffman Brothers will do a great job coming out and checking out your air conditioner, making sure it's in good shape, changing the filter, and giving you a timeline as well. If you haven't scheduled your air conditioner tune-up yet, go to HoffmanBros.com and do so. And it's really a smart idea to join Hoffman Brothers' personal protection plan, because their home protection plan is going to make sure that you are covered even if you forget about it. They're going to call to set up an appointment. They're going to make sure that you have filters at your house. They do a great job. Hoffman Brothers is easy to get in touch with. You can find them on the web at hoffmanbros.com. Set up your appointment there, or just give them a call, 314-664-3011. Call or text 314-664-3011. Hoffman Brothers, a proud Mitsubishi Electric elite contractor. In St. Louis, time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke, Dan, and Randy. And at The Athletic, Jim Bowden has the Cardinals after starting pitching. He has had the Cardinals as a seller in the past. Now he has them as a buyer. And Bowden writes, quote, "It's only a matter of time before they land a starting pitcher. Some of the possibilities include Yusei Kikuchi of the Blue Jays, Eric Fetty of the White Sox, and Cal Quantrill of the Rockies," unquote. Those are all three names of pitchers that are having really good years this year. Kikuchi is a free agent at the end of the year. Is there a name among that group, or is there another name of a player that could conceivably be on the trade market that you would like to get?
First, I would like to acknowledge what you said about them being sellers and now buyers. Look at how quickly things have changed for the Cardinals. We were talking about some other teams like the Mets, Rangers as well, where the narrative has changed very quickly over the last few weeks by what they're able to do. I think Eric Fetty is an interesting person to look at. Obviously, for the White Sox, he's been really well. He got his ERA down to 2.99. I think that he could be an interesting pickup for them in addition to their starting rotation. He was with the KBO before and was able to do it very well. I think that he won their version of the Cy Young that they have over there. So to me, that kind of looks like something that could fit the profile of what they're looking for.
Well, we're seeing some gaps in the starting pitching. You know, like Sonny Gray going tonight. You always feel pretty good on his start. But then you look at, like, what happened against Kansas City with Graceffo and Palante. They go 9 2/3 with an ERA at 6, and right-handed batters hit .541 slugging percentage against them. That concerns me. But what concerns me more was in that series. It was kind of a microcosm of when things go bad. And if the bullpen isn't very good, and they've ridden this bullpen very hard, and this is where I keep going. I think they need bullpen help. Gave up 7 runs in 8 1/3. And when it's not above average, this team struggles. They need good bullpen help because the starters just don't get very deep. I think we've been spoiled by this bullpen, and that's probably the direction, even more so than a starter, I think, because Palante, to me, has settled that down a little bit. But I got to get bullpen help. I got to find ways to bridge the gap. I mean, the bullpen has thrown probably about 45% of their innings. So that's the other side of this, that starters don't go deep, and you better have fresh arms down in your pen.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, the Cardinals made that trade with Pittsburgh where they got both Quintana and Chris Stratton. And so that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility either, because the White Sox do have relief pitchers. By the way, Max Scherzer told A.J. Pierzynski that he is not going to drop his no-trade clause. The reason he said is because we aren't going to be out of the race. He's convinced that the Rangers are going to be out in the race, so he says it's a moot point. But he's also a guy that is almost 40 years old and has been traded in 2 of the last 3 trade deadlines. So I can see why he would not want to move again.
That's why when, Dan, the other day you said that you think this trade deadline is going to be so interesting. I agree with you, because there's so many teams that are kind of right there on the bubble of maybe where they could be buyers or sellers, and you could be determine it right before the All-Star break, really, on these teams and evaluate. But it seems like there's not many teams who would be considered true sellers at this point.
If you're not getting a frontline starter, would you then load up on the bullpen? And that's where I'm going. I mean, these guys are fine, and they could fit in your rotation somewhere, and then Palante goes to your bullpen, I would assume. But I don't know about you guys. I think Andre Palante has kind of settled things in this. So if you're not getting a true impact starter, is it worth it? And maybe load up on your bullpen and make sure that that side of things is really taken care of at a high level.
No, I think you do need an impact starter. I wouldn't trade for a back-of-the-rotation guy. But if I could get somebody that is established and I think can be a front-of-the-rotation guy, not necessarily is, but I think can be. The Cardinals have to evaluate that themselves. Maybe Palante winds up being that bullpen piece because he's been effective out of the bullpen in the past.
You know what's interesting is over 2/3 of the Cardinals' wins are against teams below 500. And so you have to ask yourself the question, is it because it's a byproduct of the divisions that's not very good, and really the National League and American League is just so spread out with teams that still have a chance to win? Who are you? And I think you have to have a true evaluation, if you're the Cardinals, of just how good you think you are.
Well, and also, will the pitching be able to sustain themselves going past the All-Star break? And that's the thing that concerns me the most, and why I personally think you need to add another starter, because I agree with you. Palante has been great, but theoretically, though, with what we've seen with the starting rotation, have to bring up the age in this conversation. Will they be able to sustain this? The seasoning. Yes, you're right, 100%. The veteran leadership, if you will they be able to sustain this going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I would be surprised if the Cardinals didn't have another pitcher on their roster by the end of July when the trade deadline comes around, whether it's a starter or a reliever. I think they have to bring in somebody from the outside.
I think multiple relievers.
Yep. Isn't it weird how we use up all of our pitchers, but then you can trade for a fresh arm? Why doesn't everybody use up all their pitchers?
Well, depends if starters are going deep.
Yeah.
That's part of it, right?
Yeah.
And just teams just don't have a lot of guys that go deep. Phillies do, Dodgers do, guy like Scherzer does, but there's just not a lot of those guys out there right now.
Here's an amazing one for you. Chris Sale is going deep on a regular. He hasn't pitched for like 4 years for Boston. Now he's in Atlanta, and he's having a great year. That's today's Fresh Take on 101 ESPN. Coming up, Missouri's incredible recruiting success continues. We're going to talk about it with Mizzou's, Power Mizzou's Gabe DeArmond next on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird Report. The Cardinals will host their NL Central rivals, the Cubs, this weekend for a 4-game, 3-day series starting tonight. There will be a day-night doubleheader on Saturday. Sonny Gray is the scheduled starter for the opener. First pitch is at 7:15. The Cubs are coming into this series without one of their most consistent threats offensively. Cody Bellinger was placed on the 10-day IL. They have recalled outfielder Alexander Canario to take his place on the active roster.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Randy Carricker. It is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Mizzou's recruiting success this offseason continues, and we get a chance to talk about it with Power Mizzou's Gabe DeArmond of PowerMizzou.com. You need to check it out and subscribe. Gabe, good morning. How you doing?
Not bad. What's going on, guys?
Hey, it's great to have you with us. I want to start with this because I think you and I are kind of along the same lines here, that in watching Mizzou football for a long time, I didn't think the program was capable of what they're doing right now from a recruiting standpoint. I get that the landscape has changed with NIL, but what Eli Drinkwitz has done in accepting, embracing NIL in the transfer portal, but mostly NIL to recruit high school players, it's kind of changed the landscape of recruiting for Mizzou football, hasn't it?
Completely. I mean, look, I said all up until probably 3 years ago that the level they're recruiting at now wasn't possible at Missouri. There was a ceiling. And that ceiling was probably maybe you could get to about the 20th ranked class in the country. And they've exceeded that a couple times. They seem to be doing it fairly regularly. NIL deserves some credit, all the donors. But Eli Drinkwitz deserves a lot of it, too, because nobody's done this before here.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, there's the Missouri law that allows athletes to begin profiting off of endorsement deals while still in high school. How big of an advantage has that been for Eli Drinkwitz when it comes to NIL deals and recruiting?
Oddly enough, not very. Missouri isn't really doing all that well in the state. I think they have one of the top 10 guys in the state. This is being done because he is going outside the state to Texas and Georgia and Pennsylvania and Florida and getting kids that other big-time schools want. I mean, I don't know before this year if they had ever landed a Texas kid who had a legitimate Texas committable offer. They've beaten out – if you look at the list of schools they've beaten out, it's Penn State for a Pennsylvania kid, Georgia, Florida, USC, Oregon, Texas, A&M, Oklahoma. I mean, they are recruiting against teams they've never really successfully recruited against, and they're doing it with out-of-state kids. I can't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty sure that Drinkwitz has signed more out-of-state four-stars in his last 3 or 4 years than Gary Pinkel and Barry Odom did total.
Gabe, I love your work, and thanks for coming on. Gabe DeArmond is our guest. If I'm a kid out there, just explain to me, and I don't know if you know the answer, but I'm 18 years old, I'm 17 years old, and I'm going to Mizzou. What is he doing to make him get over the top and get these kids? Is there something that he's doing outside of NIL to where these kids are saying, I want to play for Eli and I want to go to Mizzou?
Yeah, I mean, he's a young, energetic, charismatic guy. I've never obviously been in the living room when he's recruiting a kid, but I would imagine he's pretty good at that part of it. But also, he won games. I mean, a year ago, Eli was recruiting pretty well, based all on potential and hope. But then that turned into actual proof that, hey, this is working. And it's why last year was so big, and we said it going in. I mean, he was 17-19 before last year. So he was selling – in recruiting, there's two pitches. We're not there. We need you to get there. Or we're there. We need you to stay there. And up until last year, it was, hey, we're not there. We need the guys that, you can come in, you can play early, all that. Now it's you can come compete for a national title here because he proved you could do it last year. So that's a huge fact. And I mean, every kid makes his decision for different reasons. And, NIL is a part of it for everybody. But most kids, they look at two things outside of NIL. Well, three things outside of NIL. What's my relationship with the coach? Can I play pretty soon? And can I win games? Can I be playing in big, important national games? Because every kid wants to do that.
Gabe DeArmond of PowerMizzou.com with us on 101 ESPN. And Gabe, 9 4-stars, according to you at PowerMizzou.com, have already committed to Mizzou. Are there any of those that are particularly exciting for you? I'm a perception guy. I look at wide receivers from Florida and I say, man, you're getting wide receivers that are top guys out of Florida. That's a really good thing. Are there any of those 9 4-stars that you say, wow, that's a really good get for the Tigers?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is Matt Zollers, the quarterback from Pennsylvania. He chose Mizzou over Penn State and Georgia. He was the first commit in the class, and he really was a key in getting some of those wide receivers and some of those offensive weapons. I mean, everybody wants to – you can't win in college football without the quarterback. He's ranked anywhere between the second and seventh best quarterback in the country. And is a kid who has really risen in the rankings over the last year. And then the other one, I think, is Lamont Rogers, who they got on Saturdays, an offensive tackle from Texas, chose Missouri over Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, SMU, and Florida State.
Wow.
And top 75 kid in the country. That's the type of kid that really makes – I mean, they've had skill position players, right? And they've had some good offensive linemen in the past, but Rodgers is the highest-ranked offensive lineman I think they've ever signed, but certainly the highest-ranked out-of-state one they've ever signed. I mean, it's not even particularly close. The big-time four-star kids they've gotten in the past have been, Nick Demeen, Evan Boehm, Logan Reichert, kids that were in the state of Missouri.
As you mentioned, a lot of the recruits, of course, they want to play on the national stage. And now that you have the 12-team playoff format, that's even a bigger possibility for Mizzou. What do you think is a reasonable expectation for Mizzou this season and what they could accomplish?
I mean, making the playoff is perfectly reasonable. I think they will start the season ranked somewhere between 10 and 15. They have 4 games in the month of September that, look, if you lose any of those, if Missouri's not 4-0, we're going to quit talking about the playoff because it won't happen. So you assume they're going to be 4-0. Other teams are going to lose. Missouri on October 1st should be undefeated, top 10 in the country. And from there, I mean, it's not easy, but that should be I won't say this season's a failure if they don't make the playoff. But this season will be disappointing to a lot of people if they don't make the playoff, and that certainly should be the goal going in.
You're there day in and day out, and again, we love your coverage. What is it like dealing with Eli day in and day out, and some of the things that maybe us who aren't there every day don't see? What's it like?
I mean, I like covering him because you don't really – like, he's the only guy or the first football coach I've covered here that you ask a question, you don't really know the answer. You don't know what he's going to say, right? I mean, Tinkle, Odom, it was a script. You knew what was coming. You asked the question, you got the answer you expected, and you wrote it because that's the job. But Eli might just, say something that's going to be on Feinbaum later that day. And I enjoy that. I said before last year he wanted to be Steve Spurrier. The problem was you got to win like Steve Spurrier to be Steve Spurrier, and he hadn't done that yet. Now he has for a year, and I'm not saying that makes him Steve Spurrier, but it'll be interesting to see. My guess is he'll be pretty tame at SEC Media Days, but it's not also going to shock me if he comes out and shames everyone for thinking they were going to be a 6-6 football team last year. Hey, a lot of people in the program thought they might be a 6-6 football team too. So I don't feel bad for predicting, I think 7-5 last year. Great that they overachieved or at least overachieved according to what people thought. And hey, you earned that right. If he wants to get up there and call all of us morons, cool. Go for it. We'll write the story.
A couple more things for Gabe DeArmond. Number one, and none of us know exactly, but from what you, with your contacts, have found out, and you talk to people all over the country, it seems like Missouri is doing really well in the NIL space. What sort of an impression are you getting about how they're getting money and dispersing money?
Well, there's 2 people that really deserve credit for this, and that's Eli Drinkwitz and Desiree Reed-Francois. They were out in front of this. They saw before a lot of people, hey, okay, here's the rules, and here's how we can just make every rule, stretch it as far as we can to make it work for us. I mean, I had somebody tell me the other day, I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me that other schools are saying things like, we need the Missouri model here. We need to do what Mizzou did. Hey, I mean, you are now like Nebraska just brought their NIL in-house earlier this week. Missouri basically did that a year and a half ago. You're seeing still states passing these laws that are now catching up to the Missouri law that was passed 2 full years ago. So they were out front. They did it before anybody else. And Drinkwitz's personality, I think, has galvanized Missouri donors. I think it's a combination of having a head coach who has the personality, and this is now legal, right? Like, there have been schools that have been doing NIL in college football for 75 years. But a lot of schools weren't, because maybe they had donors who said, yeah, I want to help my team, but I don't want to break the rules to do it. Now you're not breaking rules. So everybody who follows Missouri has known for a long time there is money out there in the alumni base. There are people who want to see this team win. And now I think they've all kind of gotten together and made the decision, let's do this. This is our shot. If we put some money behind this, we can do something that's never been done here.
Gabe, it's early in his tenure, but what about Laird Veach and the impact that he's made so far, and what kind of impact do you think he can make with the program?
Yeah, I think we're still very much in the gathering information, putting together a staff. I know they made some hires from Memphis earlier this week. So it's so much is changing that I think it's unfair to ask. I mean, I had an interview with Laird about a month ago, and he really couldn't definitively answer any of the questions, and I don't blame him, because nobody knows right now, and he's brand new. Look, I said when Desiree left, I said, in an ideal world, you don't really talk about who the athletic director is, right? You're focused on the football coach and the basketball coach. And if you're focused on the AD, it probably means it's because he or she has to replace the football or the basketball coach.
Right.
So Laird knows people here. I think he's a good fit. He talked a lot about how much he loved Columbia and Mizzou coming back. So I think that's a good thing. I think he will do a fine job. And again, hopefully we just don't really talk about it.
And that means fundraising, and that means improvements with facilities. We have a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of alum here in St. Louis, and they'll make the trek to Columbia to watch on a Saturday afternoon. What, if you can try to describe it, what is the stadium going to look like in the next year or two with the influx of money and some of the improvements that they're going to make?
I mean, it's going to look a lot different. That north end is going to be it's going to look like a modern stadium, or at least a modern addition onto a not quite as modern stadium. I think there's a debate to be had whether that's where you spend the money. Personally, I would probably lean toward not spending $250 million on a stadium renovation, and rather saying, hey, let's take $60 million of that and buy the best team in America every year.
Yeah, yep.
But hey, this is something Eli has wanted for a long time, and the entire focus of this athletic department right now is let's make sure Eli has every single thing he wants. So they've made that decision, and I always, fans ask me a lot about game experience and stadium renovations and this and that, and I just say, guys, I like, that's not my lane. I don't know. The press box is fine. They serve food I don't eat. If they have coffee and it's 72 degrees up there, I'm happy. So I just don't have I don't have that experience. None of that stuff affects me on game day.
Gabe, before we let you go, more interest in Mizzou football and basketball than there's ever been. What do people get when they get their premium subscription to PowerMizzou.com?
Yeah, I mean, everyday coverage, guys. Usually multiple stories a day, whether it's, we've got our weekly recruiting report up right now. We've been on top of all this stuff happened in the last few weeks. We're sending Gerard Hamilton to Dallas for SEC Media Days. We will have a minimum of one football story a day from now till whenever the season ends. And, we like to think it's the most comprehensive coverage a Missouri fan can find.
It absolutely is. Gabe, thanks so much for the time. Always good to have you on the air, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Have a good day, guys.
You too. Thank you. Gabe DeArmond, PowerMizzou.com. By the way, Pro Football Focus has Luther Burden as the number 7 overall player in next year's NFL draft, the number 1 skill position player. All the other players, skill position offensive player. You've got an edge rusher, a defensive lineman, an offensive tackle, a corner, another edge rusher, and a tackle. And then you've got Luther Burden as the number 1 offensive skill position player in the entire draft, according to Pro Football Focus.
He deserves all the national attention attention. He is so exciting to watch. I had the pleasure of course, watching him here in high school, and he's just continued to develop into such a great player, the player that everybody was expecting. And so it's great to see him get more and more national attention. Now, with what Gabe said with the football stadium, I understand what he's saying, but I think it's really important to have those upgrades because it also, in turn, one, helps with the fan experience, but it helps with recruiting, too.
Spend money to make money, too. You get people in the more, especially when you're good, the more luxury amenities that you have to sell, the more people are going to buy them. They don't have enough room for all the people that want luxury amenities at Faurot Field right now.
What's the SEC going to look like without Nick Saban? I think that's one of the biggest questions in college football going into SEC Media Day. Just no Nick Saban. He's been the face of college football, the coaches forever, and it's what's going to happen. How many kids are they going to lose? What's recruiting like? All those things. What are they going to look like on the field this year?
I think college football is really compelling. It's so much fun.
It is. Can't wait.
Coming up, Matthew, do you need a fighter? Yep. Okay, we do need a fighter, apparently. 314-399-9646 if you want to play. Text in your name and the word fight to 314-399-YO-HO.
That was a little early. I wasn't expecting that.
I was trying to shake you guys up a little bit. The fight's coming your way next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals had a day off yesterday before they start their 4-game series against the Cubs tonight. 7:15 first pitch. It is an Apple TV Plus game, and it'll be Sonny Gray, the righty for the Cardinals, facing off against the righty for the Cubs, Kyle Hendricks. Hendricks on the season 1-7 with a 7.53 ERA. Also back in action this weekend, St. Louis City SC as they take on the Vancouver Whitecaps. 7:30 from City Park, and you can catch interim head coach John Hackworth coming up in the very next segment after the fight at 8:45 with Randy, Brooke, and Danny. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Carricker.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, and Rockio here, and it is time for the fight. And our fighter today is Michael. Sorry, I did not double check with Rockio right before this. I realized that. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. Is this your first time facing Randy in the fight?
Oh, my goodness. I have been trying to fight Randy for years. Finally have my chance.
All right. Well, here we go with question 1.
All right, Michael. Question number 1. Which U.S. player pulled off the dunk of death in the 2000 Olympics, literally jumping over a French big man? Was it Kevin Garnett, Tracy McGrady, or Vince Carter?
Vince Carter.
Question number 2. New Blues defenseman Ryan Suter is in a very small group of players to have their contracts bought out multiple times in their career. He was bought out by the Stars this offseason, but which was the first team to do it? Was it the Predators, the Wild, or the Ducks?
We'll go Wild.
Nice guess, Michael. On to question 3.
Who is the only player in Major League Baseball history to tally a 50 home run season in both the NL and AL? Is it Jim Thome, Ken Griffey Jr., or Mark McGwire?
Did McGwire hit 49, or did he actually get to 50 in Oakland? I can't remember. I feel like I know Thome did it, so I'll go Thome. I feel like, oh, man, maybe he hit 51 in Oakland.
Okay, so your final answer is Thome?
Yeah, we'll go Thome.
Okay, question 4. Which AL club holds the record for being no-hit the fewest times in Major League history, just twice? Is it the Royals, the Angels, or the Rays?
The Rays have been around the least amount of years, so I think that would probably make sense. And they've usually been pretty good, so I'll go with the Rays.
All right. How are you feeling, Michael?
I'm feeling okay. I'm probably going to lose, but that's all right. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. You sailed through the first 2 questions, and then it got a little bit tougher from there. Here comes Randy in with his bright green neon shirt. I would say that's neon, right? Neonish.
Kind of.
Kind
neon.
of. Yeah, it's very bright green.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. Randy, say hi to Michael.
Michael, good morning. How you doing?
Oh, if I were any better, I'd be you, Randy.
That's pretty darn good. Well done, Michael. Thank you.
I like Michael a lot.
Yeah.
You ready for question number 1, Randy?
Ready.
Which U.S. player pulled off the dunk of death in the 2000 Olympics, literally jumping over a French big man?
In the 2000 Olympics, seems like it would be Vince Carter, the dunk of death. He seems like he would be a guy that would do that. I will go with Vince Carter.
Are you ready for question 2?
I am.
New Blues defenseman Ryan Suter is in a very small group of players to have their contracts bought out multiple times in their career.
Mm-hmm.
He was bought out by the Stars this offseason.
Yes.
But which was the first team to do it?
The Minnesota Wild, with 4 years left on that 13-year, $98 million deal.
Is that your final answer?
Yes, sir.
All right, question 3.
And he got into it with Bill Guerin, former Blue, who's now
sure
the GM.
did. Yeah, he did.
They had a set 2.
You ready for 3?
Ready.
Okay. Who is the only player in Major League Baseball history to tally a 50 home run season in both the NL and AL?
Oh, my. I'm going to go Greg Vaughn. Maybe the Rays and the Padres? I will go with Greg Vaughn.
Final answer?
I don't think Griffey did it. Oh, you know who did that? I think, did Big Mac get to 50 with the A's? I'm questioning myself. Big Mac had 49 in his rookie year. You know what? I think he might have had over 50 the year before he came here, maybe 58 or so. 50 home runs in the American, 50 in the National League. Okay,
That's correct.
I'll go Big Mac.
Question 4 is Brooks. No, is it mine?
It's yours.
I've answered 3.
Ready for the weekend.
Ready.
Okay. Which American League club holds the record for being no-hit the fewest times in Major League history, just twice?
2 times. Well, you'd think it would be a recent expansion team, correct? Like the Tampa Bay Rays. Seems like they've been no-hit twice. You know what, Danny? I will use the lifeline here since we haven't used it yet.
Royals, Angels, Rays.
Okay. This is... Okay. Royals, Angels, Rays. This is a 3-sided coin now. But I'm going to go with... since the Angels started in 1960, I'm going to say that they've been no-hit more than twice. Royals, it doesn't feel like they've been no-hit a lot. So I will go with the Royals with cheese.
All right, Matthew, do your thing.
We have a winner in today's fight. Was it Michael, who's been waiting so long for his chance, and Randy just extinguishes it? Or we got another win for Megamind going into the weekend. Ring that bell.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
I'm sorry, Michael, you folded Randy Carricker in the fight today, 4-2.
I had a feeling.
Well,
Sorry
we
about that,
appreciate you
Michael.
playing.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Thanks so much for joining the fight and joining the show, Michael.
Thanks so much. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Sounded dejected there at the end. He came in hot. Now he sounds a little dejected.
Dreams.
Sorry.
Stay tuned to Rocc and Roll for the answers because we got to go.
All right, Rocc and Roll is coming up because we got to go because interim manager John Hackworth of St. Louis City SC joins us next on 101 ESPN. St. Louis City SC back in action tomorrow night at City Park, a 7:30 contest against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Brooke Grimsley, Danny Mack, Randy Carricker, good to have you with us, and good to head to the celebrity line where the interim coach of St. Louis City SC, John Hackworth, joins us. Coach, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I don't think I've ever been called a celebrity.
Well, you are now. You move over those to the big chair, and you're a celebrity.
Listen, I'm a soccer coach, all right? And let's be real about it. So, but thanks for saying.
You got it. Hey, John, I want to ask you, because we were just having this discussion. You're referred to on the St. Louis City SC website as the interim manager. Carnell was the coach. What's your preference there?
Coach, I mean, my grandfather was a coach. You know, he was a professional athlete way back in the day. And so, you know, it's part of our family. And I always just had such great respect for all the coaches I ever had. So coach is an endearing term and one that I think is one of respect.
Good. Thank you.
So, Coach, what have things been like since taking things over here and just making those adjustments to now being the head coach of everything?
It's been a little chaotic. It's been quick and fast. You know, we didn't have much time before the first game. We had 0 time before the second. It's settled down this week a little bit because we've had a nice week of preparation. So things are getting calmer, and we're getting into a rhythm of how we want to work and operate. And I feel good about that. The team is ready. I think we're all excited to get back in City Park and face a really good Vancouver team.
Well, Coach, you mentioned your grandfather being an influence for you. How about influence in the game of soccer, or influences? Who are some of those people, and what have they taught you?
Man, I've been so fortunate in my career to have mentors, and I don't need to throw out the names because you probably don't know who they are. But I've been blessed. You know, I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I became a head coach when I was 28 years old at the University of South Florida. But I always tell people that I steal ideas from the smartest people because I'm not the smartest guy in the room. So I've been very fortunate to have people, and even with recently with Bradley. You know, Bradley came in. We worked together for 2.5 years. I stole a lot of good ideas from Bradley, and so we have established a system of play here that's important. There's nuances going forward, and we've tried to make those in a short amount of time.
I was going to ask you about that. Are the changes so nuanced that those of us that we're novices in this room, would we notice, or are there things that we are clear that are going to change as you move forward as the interim coach?
I think there'll be things that are clear. Yeah, I think there will be things that are clear. I think you'll probably be able to see some of those right away on Saturday night. If we go back to the San Jose game, there were several nuances and details that shifted a little bit. As an example, we played Chris Durkin at center back. Nobody had ever seen that. People thought I was a little bit nuts for doing it, but I had previously coached him on the national team and played him at center back. So, a lot of it is just my experience and what I've done previously, especially with a lot of guys on this team. Lutz and I have collectively been working for, 3+ years on building this whole club. So it's not like I haven't been with these guys or part of this process the entire time.
Some new faces coming in. Is there a specific way that you incorporate new players like Gerwood Reich and Toy Shirt into training, especially with this system?
Look, they're such good players. They're going to increase our quality on the field. They're also good people. So what we try to do is just make sure that they know exactly what we are asking them to do, that their role is defined, that they understand it. And then you got to let players like that just go express themselves too. So the best part of them is that while they play their role, they also have qualities, especially in the game of soccer, where their creativity and the imagination come out And that's something that you're really not coaching. You're just allowing them to be in a fantastic spot to go express themselves that way.
Coach, we're always interested in local guys, local kids, and you have SLU grad Johnny Klein. He broke through for his first MLS goal this past weekend. So I'll ask you, how much of an impact has he made on this roster? It's just been 3 starts over the last couple of weeks, but the impact that he's made.
Yeah, it's been massive, and I'm so happy for him. When I first got here, I went to every SLU game. I watched Johnny. I asked Kevin Kalis, the SLU head coach, who is this kid? And I've known Kevin for a long time. He felt that Johnny could make the steps and develop, and we've seen that right for our own eyes. So happy for Johnny to get that goal in Colorado. Disappointed that we couldn't celebrate it more with a good result. But he continues to really be important, especially in a time where we have a lot of injuries and there's an opportunity. And certainly he prepared himself well and then has stepped up and really been fantastic for us.
Hey, John, how's Berkey feeling?
Thank goodness he feels good, because a healthy Roman Berkey gives us a great chance to be successful on Saturday night.
Good to hear. And aside from St. Louis City SC, for those that aren't aware, you were the head coach of the national U17 team for several years. You were an assistant on the national team. And obviously they're looking for a coach right now because you have an intimate knowledge of that situation. What would the ideal scenario from a coaching standpoint be, in your opinion, for the U.S. national team?
If they hire me.
We want you here, though.
No, I'm kidding. Well, then let's put a little pressure on Lutz to make this full time. All right. No, look, the U.S. national team, that player pool is exceptional, probably the best we've ever had. And what they need is somebody to come in and make sure that they coach and manage that group of players to win games. That's what the deal is. It doesn't matter how you play. It matters that internationally you're getting from one, group stage out of the group stage into the round of elimination, and you're advancing in tournaments. And that's what that team needs right now. They have the talent. They just need to get organized and really put it out there.
So do you think, and I think you do think, that this is our country, our soccer program, they could do some damage in a couple of years with the World Cup?
Yeah, and on home soil, it's just like with City playing in City Park. We're at a different level. We have support. The energy is different. I think for the U.S. team, it's a fantastic opportunity, and they have to get it right because it's on the world stage. And in the U.S., we will embrace that as the sport fans that we always are. And it'll be massive for everybody.
Coach, good luck tomorrow night. I'm coming, so I'm really excited about it, and I know it's going to be a lot of fun either way. But let's see if we can bring home a W against Vancouver.
That's the plan.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
See you. Take care. John Hackworth. He is the head coach of St. Louis City SC.
A lot of adjustments that City SC has had to go through and big changes. So I'm sure that's very intimidating and hard for him to navigate, but he has the experience to do so.
He's got a lot of experience, man. He's been around.
So you're going to the game?
I'm going, yeah. I'm there.
And you've been there before or no?
Yeah, but not. I'm going as a fan tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to be.
So you can enjoy the food. There's a lot of good food out there.
Oh, yeah. Like
local
52,
vendors.
53, 54 different kiosks with
Steve's
local vendors.
Hot Dogs is there. There's a lot. There really is a lot of good food spots there.
That diet can wait then.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going on
Steve's
a diet?
Hot dogs. I need to lose weight, Dan.
I think you look great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The way you said that.
I do.
You sounded dejected there, Randy.
I am dejected. I eat these grapes every morning.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Then my afternoon snack is Reese's. I don't know why this isn't working.
What kind of diet are you going to start? Is there a certain one? Because people do
doing my Slim 180 thing. Yeah, I'm doing my Slim 180. I'm going to drop about 30.
When does that fire up?
Now.
But you're having hot dogs tomorrow.
No, I'm going to. There's got to be healthy choices, right? At the City SC game.
Totally.
Matthew?
But when
soccer
there's
people are healthy, right?
I don't know. All I'm thinking about is I really, really want a hot dog right now. I don't know why you guys said that. And I'm like, damn it, I don't have any at home, and I don't know any place.
I don't have any at home.
I gotta drive to Steve's Hot Dogs Day, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, why not? It's Friday. Treat yourself.
There's a Chicago-style place up at 141 and Olive.
Let's not. It's not getting.
Oh,
You don't like Chicago dogs?
quality, huh?
Not that abomination.
Oh man, you just don't understand good food, sir.
I put ketchup on my hot dogs. Therefore, I am
Ketchup on hot dogs is
antithetical to the Chicago dog.
So they get really upset in Chicago if you put ketchup on your hot dog.
But if you go to Woofie's, you can get ketchup on your hot dog. If you go to the it's what, Fox's Red Hots or something? I don't remember what it was. But yeah, you can go to Chicago places and you can get ketchup on your dog. They're
the first
delicious.
time I ever had a Chicago dog was actually when remember when Sonic introduced a bunch of different types of hot dogs on their menu? That was my intro to a Chicago dog.
So you went really into the local flair of what it's all about.
Thanks, Sonic, for introducing me to different types of hot dogs.
Now, this wasn't typical Nathan's. I once won at Woofie's a hot dog eating contest, but it was the Big Daddy at Woofie's. I had 6 of them.
I have to look this up.
You won a hot dog eating. I know a lot had you.
Trophy, yeah.
Do you have the trophy still?
I gave it to Hadley. Hadley was in the contest too, and I said, "You take it."
I had no idea.
Yeah. It was epic. Yeah, and those were big dogs, man.
Any other eating competitions that we should know about? That I guess this is what you do in your spare time. Well, we know about the bunny, but is there another one where you went to a restaurant?
I think. Oh yeah. I've done wings before. I did at the old school, not the current wing ding.
And by the way, this wasn't like under a timed, 5 minutes or something. This is just as many as you can eat
with wings.
Yeah. Or even the hot dog.
Well, the hot dog thing
wasn't like Joey Chestnut just dipping it in water.
Was a half hour. It was 6.5 hours.
Okay.
But the wings thing. No, I think it was like 10 minutes or something like that.
How many did you pound?
I don't even remember. I didn't win. So it didn't matter.
What are you laughing at, Brooke?
Some of the texts that are coming in.
Oh.
And but also Randy and you're right, Dan. We do learn something new about him every day.
Every time. I had zero clue about that. Now, does it shock me? No. It doesn't shock me at all to see you in a contest of those sorts, but I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Best hot dog in town.
Oh, it's still Woofie's.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, they're sensational.
I've never had one of those. I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah, I was looking it up.
Pretty good. Let's see. They're still rated even by Yelp as the #1 hot dog in town.
All right. I'm going to check it out.
These hot dogs are really good.
They are. Yeah.
So can't go wrong. All right, coming up, we've got the rush hour. Talk there. Don't you guys have you and Martin do a weekly? Is that a good talk? Is that what it's called?
Great talk.
Great talk. Yeah.
On Mondays. Yeah.
Okay.
Are hot dogs on the menu discussion?
We haven't done that, but we've done a lot of different things. Talking about Martin Kilcoyne. Yeah, he's great. One of the most talented people, if not the most talented guy in town.
And the funniest person in town.
That's what I was going to say. He's so funny.
You guys ever seen him MC anything?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Unreal.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, we've got the Rush Hour Reset on 101 ESPN. Hey, I want you to know about my friends at 2060 Digital. They're right down the hall here. And at 2060 Digital, they're going to connect you with more customers. That's right. They know how to use social media so that you can attract more customers into your business. But it's not just social media. It's having the best website available, an attractive website that will interest people in your business. And here's a big key. The algorithms that get your company on the first page when you do a search, those are known by 2060 Digital. They can enhance your business dramatically by improving your spot in the social media space and in the digital space. Get in touch with 2060 Digital, a sister company of 101 ESPN, by going to 101ESPN.com/2060 Digital. And they're going to put a plan together for you so that you will be able to attract more customers. And their analytics people are going to show you exactly what sort of response you're getting when you work with 2060 Digital. Again, 101ESPN.com/2060 Digital.
Stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
It is 9:06 in St. Louis, 9:07 and 2-1. Woof. 9:07 time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Cards and Cubs tonight at the ballpark, opening up a 4-game series. Sonny Gray will pitch for the Redbirds, and he'll be opposed by Kyle Hendricks, who's 1-7 this year with a 7.53 earned run average. And you would think that the Cardinals' left-handed lineup will be in place for Ali Marmol for that 7:15 game, and hopefully the Redbirds can do some damage to the Cubbies as we head into the All-Star break.
We were talking about the expectations for this weekend. 3 out of 4. Is that safe to say?
I would say that would be my hope, yes.
Considering you don't have Eminaga, you don't have Steele, you also don't have Cody Bellinger. He just went on the IL, so you don't have a lot of the guys that you would expect to see from the Cubs. And what has gone on with the Cubs this season, by the way? Just a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of negative.
Yeah.
A lot of negative things. I got to wonder with the Bellinger injury how that complicates what they want to do at the trade deadline. There was a lot of talk of him potentially moving on, and Randy mentioned that Kyle Hendricks will go tonight. He wasn't in the rotation for the better part of the season. Much of that was done out of the bullpen. So Hendricks and Gray tonight, and then Lance Lynn going on Saturday along with Cal Gibson. It's a doubleheader, and then Miles Michaelis in Game 4. So you got the big 4 going at the Cubbies this weekend.
Talk a lot about the Cardinals' right-handed hitting because aside from Contreras, obviously Goldie and Arenado have not performed up to their previous levels so far this season. Jordan Walker last night, 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. He's hitting .251 with a .704 OPS for Memphis. Cardinals don't have right-handed power hitters in their system. If the Cardinals are going to be in this thing and they're going to be able to win games against good teams, and Dan, as you mentioned earlier, 2/3 of the Cardinal wins this year against teams that are under 500, basically.
Yes. Yep.
They're going to have those guys that have hit good pitching in the past step up. And I'm almost at a point now where I don't expect it. I know that's bad, but I've gone from expectation to hope that Goldie and more Goldie than Arenado. I think that Arenado can do some things, it's been a while since Goldie has been a prolific hitter.
Yeah.
It's been a year. I mean, this is the second half of last year, first half of this year. And really, if you look at his season, and there's been some bumps where you look and go, okay, that's the Goldie that you're expecting. Basically, his year, Randy, and I know you're going to probably look up the numbers, but month by month, it's essentially been the same. There hasn't been much of a decline of where he's at and not much of a bump. It's just kind of been where he's at, which is below his normal look at his career.
Yeah. What do you guys think that it is, other than we talk about the regression? Is there anything that you're seeing at his approach at the plate or anything like that that looks different?
Yeah, I see teams just busting him with strike one, strike. I mean, they are very aggressive early in counts with him, and he finds himself in non-hitters counts. And I'm sure they've talked about it ad nauseum, but they're challenging him more so than I've ever seen. And they're saying, okay, go strike one, bust him in. And they're getting success out of doing that against Paul Goldschmidt.
And as you get older, your hands aren't as quick. And I always wondered, and I know with him basically touching the back of his neck with his bat, it takes so long to get the bat into the zone. As you get older, right? When he had those incredibly quick hands, you have a great trigger right there. But I wonder now if just the way he hits is affecting him. And by the way, his OPSs this year, March and April 641, May 682, June 642, July 755. None of those up to his previous standards. And then, Dan, like you mentioned, if we go back to last year and the month by month, and we'll just work our way back, but his OPS in September, October was 709, 794 in August, 752. Last time he had an OPS above 800 for a month was May of last year when he had an 895, hit 272 with 6 homers, and 7 doubles, so 13 extra base hits in that month. So it has been well over a year. Calendar year since he's had an OPS over 800 for a month.
So not a lot of what's going above that number, not a lot going below it. So this is kind of the player that he is right now.
Where is he at strikeouts wise currently?
6th in the National League at the moment, which is not great. Let me get that number for you.
Is it around like 110 or 12, I believe?
His number, I can get it for you right this moment. Brooke, strikeouts for Goldie, 111.
Okay. Yeah.
6th in the National League.
Gorman right now at 122 for the season. Last year, he had 148 in the entire season. Of course, a lot more at bats because we're just only through the halfway point. But does that bother you guys that we're seeing more strikeouts this year? And I know that the Cardinals are not alone in this. We've talked a lot about how hitting is down across the league. But is that surprising to you that you're seeing players being struck out so much?
No, because I think it's accepted.
Yeah, it is.
And
bothers me. But it is accepted.
Personally, I hate it.
Well,
right.
yeah.
But it's just accepted in the game. And we should mention that Milwaukee lost last night. They've dropped now 5 of 7, and the Cardinals are 5 games out. I think another thing in the second half of the season that has to be a difference maker for the Cardinals, and Randy talked about it yesterday, getting swept by Kansas City. When you're at home, got to play good baseball at home. They're only 4 games above 500 at Busch Stadium, so that's something that needs to improve as they head into the second half after the All-Star break.
And I do think that the realization has hit them that because it's so hard to hit home runs in this ballpark, they're playing more aggressive. They're the double steals, the stolen bases, the hit and runs. They're doing things because the other team has trouble hitting home runs too, doing things to try to get runners into scoring position and play a little bit more small ball at home.
That's why I love watching Brendan Donovan personally, and Mason Wynn as well, is that I feel like they will do whatever it takes to just get it done.
They haven't had great success, though.
Yeah.
And you want to see it, and I'm with you. I think they need to, instead of just waiting back on a home run, and they had 3 home runs in game 1 of the doubleheader the other day and didn't win the game, and Goldie and Arenado homered for the first time in the same game this year, which is always shocking to me, but they have tried. They're trying to get offense going and moving guys, but they haven't had great success doing that, and I would say that that's something that needs to improve in the second half too.
That's Dan, that's Brooke, I'm Randy. Coming up, we're going to talk some Blues hockey. We're going to talk about Ryan Suter with our friend, our Blues insider from The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford, who's next on 101 ESPN.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and I want to tell you why I love the Missouri Athletic Club. It's because they're helping me stick to my big goals for this year. One of my big goals was to get into better shape. I've always been very active, but I just wanted to really push myself physically. And thanks to Christine over at the Missouri Athletic Club at the West location, I work out with her twice a week, and I've seen so much progress. And the other big goal was to get back to the sport that I've played my entire life, which is tennis, and it's been so much fun really improving my game and going out and hitting over at the West location with Scott. And that's what they do there over at the Missouri Athletic Club. They always provide such a wonderful experience.
Grimsley and Dan McLaughlin. I'm Randy Carricker, and it's good to have you with us on 101 ESPN. Our receiver insider here on the opening drive is Jeremy Rutherford. JR, great to have you with us. Justin Jefferson, go.
Oh, he's great. Jet, he's great. The guy, I don't usually get into the diva receivers, but I started watching that receiver show a couple nights ago, and I love Justin Jefferson. And you know what? I'm a little down on George Kittle. Like, you watch the games, and he's a pretty exciting player, but all that audio on the sidelines that you hear, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns, I'm the man. Like, I don't know, George. I think Justin's the guy here.
Oh, wow. That's really surprising. So have you finished all of it? Did you binge all this?
No, just a couple episodes. And I have a question for you guys because I felt a little bad last night watching it with my 11-year-old Eli. There's a lot of F-bombs on that show, and we like watching the show, but after a few of them, you kind of want to turn it off, and I don't know if I'm being a bad parent here letting my son hear all these F-bombs.
Oh, man, it's just so offensive. I hope he's going to be okay moving forward.
Hey, Danny, I was going to give you a compliment. Hey, quick shout-out to the folks out here at Pomodoros. I walked into the sandwich shop yesterday here in Arnold, and they're listening to 101 nonstop, and Danny, Randy, Brooke, they said they love listening to you, so shout out.
Oh, that's so nice.
Sandwich shop. Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Do you think we could go to that sandwich shop and they'd maybe throw us a sandwich or two if I show up with Randy and Brooke?
Well, I've been trying to get you out to A-Town here for about 25 years, Dan, and you've yet to pick me up on one of those offers, so I doubt it.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
So, hey, JR, you had a great piece at The Athletic on how the old Ryan Suter contract came together. Let's start with this. The Blues tried to get him 3 years ago when Minnesota bought him out. Have they gotten him too late?
Yeah, I think so. I think so for sure. It's just the situation that they're in as to why they're bringing him in here. And perhaps even if they got him 3 years ago, it might have been too late. I think that Ryan Suter obviously has had an outstanding career. Get a chance to talk to him later today. But I think the reason the Blues were interested a couple years ago and why they are now is, they're just looking for some depth at that position. I think that they're still trying to move Torrey Krug, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment. But I think that right now they're stockpiling some defensemen with the Perinoviches, the Tuckers, the Josephs, and now Suter, with the anticipation that there's likely going to be a move and that they have enough depth at that position.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it seems like a pretty big logjam, honestly. So you still think that they could be trying to move Torrey Krug, or is there somebody else that they'd be looking at?
Well, I think so. I think, it's been Torrey Krug for, year and a half now. They do have 9 defensemen, and typically you keep 7. Sometimes you can keep 8, but if you keep 8, then you can only keep 13 forwards on the roster. But more importantly, they have 3 on the right side and 5 on the left side, and so there is a logjam. And so what are you going to do? And to me, Scott Perinovich is cheap. You might think that there's still some upside there, so you want to keep him. You just, signed Joseph. You like Tucker still with his raw ability. And then you bring in Suter. Suter. You didn't bring him in for no reason. So it all points back to Torrey Krug. And, a couple weeks ago I was on with you guys, and I had heard a lot of rumblings that Torrey Krug would potentially be willing to waive that no-trade clause. In the past 24 hours, there's a lot of work done behind the scenes for these articles. The article, might be 900 words, but you put hours into text messages and phone calls trying to get the right information. And what I found out yesterday is that is not accurate at this time, that Torrey Krug at this time is not willing to waive his no-trade clause. And so, is that posturing? Is that, the negotiation that goes back and forth with the negotiation? There could be a lot of things involved. But the bottom line is, at this time, he's not willing to waive that no-trade clause.
It's interesting. He's been bought out. Ryan Suter has been bought out by a couple of different organizations. Would that concern you at all in terms of what that means? I'm sure money, a huge part of it. The kind of player he is still, that's a huge part of it. But maybe also the kind of attitude that he brings to the Blues. Those 3 things, can you comment on that, or what you think about him being bought out 2 different times?
Yeah, Dan, I think 100%. And those 2 buyouts, one in Minnesota, and we know that was the big 13-year, $98 million deal, and there were 4 years left on that. It's a different general manager, Bill Guerin, and he's trying to clean up the books and get the roster that he wants on the ice. So, maybe you look at that situation and you chalk it up to that. But then he goes to Dallas on a 4-year deal. He plays out 3 years of that contract, and they buy him out with a year to go. You could maybe point to that situation and say, well, he's 39 years old. Or they sheltered some of his minutes, even though he played 19 minutes a game. A little bit was sheltered. So you might say that's the reason for the buyout in Dallas. But I think big picture, you got to look at 2 buyouts, what kind of teammate he is. I think that there have been questions, especially in the Minnesota career, in terms of what kind of teammate he was. And I asked his agent about that yesterday, Neil Sheehy, and he said that, yeah, that's been brought up in the past, but I think he made some real strides in Dallas and did work with a lot of those young players. That's the key in all this. Like, you bring in a Ryan Suter, sure, you need the depth, but if you're looking at a guy who's going to be a good teammate and work with a Scott Perinovich and a Tyler Tucker, whoever's here, you want a guy who's going to be there for those young players. And there's been questions about that in the past that, we'll have to face when Ryan Suter gets to camp.
And JR, as you pointed out in your piece at The Athletic, there's no way that the Blues can keep all of these guys because they need to keep forwards on their roster too. So there does have to be a culling of the herd of these 9 defensemen.
Yeah, there has to be. And you can, as far as I know, they would all need to go through waivers. And we're talking about the Perinoviches and the Josephs too. At the beginning of the year, you can try to sneak those guys through to your American Hockey League team, and most rosters are full, and teams have their own roster issues, and so it's tough for them to pluck a guy like Tyler Tucker off of waivers and keep him on the NHL roster when all their rosters are full, like I said. So even if you can get a Tucker or a Joseph, if you would want to, I'm not even saying you'd want to, it still gets you down to 8, 7 if you're lucky. So I just think this speaks to a move being done at some point. Who knows if it's imminent or if it's going to take another week or 2 or month. But every indication that I've been told in doing my homework the past couple of days for this article that I wrote yesterday is that most people don't expect Torrey Krug to be on the roster on opening night.
Is there anything else the Blues could do at this point? I mean, it looks like they've been pretty active on, looking at from their perspective. But do you think there's anything else the Blues might do?
Well, when we talked to Doug Armstrong the other day, I said, is the roster complete? And he said, yes, with the exception that, if we can make it better, that we will. So obvious caveat there. But I think it's a situation where he's done probably all he wants to do at this point in terms of adding, bringing in a couple forwards. I think the bottom six looks better. That they want it to be faster. Rocc Foxa, he's a bigger player, not necessarily a faster player. Doug envisions that these centers are going to be able to get the puck in the zone, and now they've brought in some quick wingers who are going to be able to get in on the forecheck. So I think the team is a little bit faster, and then, like I said, they've added some depth on defense here. So I didn't expect anything fancy. I didn't expect them to go out and spend some money. Even when they moved that Kevin Hayes money, I didn't expect that. So, Dan, I think this is what Doug Armstrong set out to kind of accomplish, what he's done here. And now I think that the last part of it is moving one of these defensemen like a Torrey Krug.
Any other teams garner your attention in free agency, JR? Maybe some surprises out there or under the radars type signings?
Dan, just Nashville and how aggressive they were getting Steven Stamkos, getting Jonathan Marchessault, and remember they got Ryan O'Reilly a year ago, and he played well last year. So to me, it looks like what Barry Trotz is doing is building a veteran team, guys who a lot of them have been there. Stamkos, Cup winner, Ryan O'Reilly, Cup winner, Luke Shen, a couple years ago they got, he's a quality locker room guy. I really like what Nashville's building. Hey, they might not win the President's Trophy, and they might not be the favorite to win the Cup coming out of the West especially, but I think that Nashville's going to be a team that's going to be there next year because of these moves that Barry Trotz made.
Speaking of Stamkos, what did you think about the whole process of how everything went down with the Lightning? Because he said that he wanted to stay in Tampa, and of course it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, I think that's one of those touchy situations. We've been through it here with Brett Hall and other teams have been through it with their star players, is that management gets to a point where they feel like it's probably best to move on. You don't want to give a guy who's mid-30s another 5-year deal, and you don't know how much to pay those types of guys because the sentimental value of them being in your city and what they mean to your city kind of commands a lot, but at the same time, are they worth that as a player? And I just reading the tea leaves with Tampa and Stamkos down the stretch there before he moved to Nashville, it just felt like a situation where they wanted to move on from him, but they wanted it to be a soft landing. And if you had Tampa and the GM and his hand on the fire on the stove, I would think that he would feel like this went about as good as could be expected. So they move on, and they get a good player in Jake Ginsel in free agency, and people move on from their stars. Eventually it happens.
And JR, as Brooke asked about Nashville, you think about the guys that you mentioned, plus signing Saros to the extension and Brady Ski, the defenseman. Do you think on opening night they lift a banner that says 2024 offseason champions?
They might. You know what? I try not to get wrapped up in too many of those things, especially with the job that you have being a reporter that covers the NHL legitimately, I hope. But I cannot stop myself whenever it comes to like photoshopping these banners and hanging them in the Nashville rooftop there. I think I've done that on a few times, and I get some hate from the Nashville fans, but oh, gosh, it's great. It's kind of like the Lakers. Didn't they do that mini tournament banner?
Yeah, season tournament banner, right.
Unbelievable. So, yeah, I think they probably will, Randy.
So, Devontae Adams, I'm intrigued by the Amon-Ra St. Brown episode.
Me too, and you guys are going to kill me, but I just, covering games and trying to get away from sports sometimes, I was not as familiar with St. Brown as I should be, and other people are, and watching his story on that Receivers Story show is really good. So I like it. Yeah, a little too much George Kittle there at the start. Got me some Devontae Adams last night and some Jefferson. So good show if anybody's thinking about watching it.
Do you think the NHL will do that with anybody? I mean, there's some compelling players with personality, and you see it sometimes leading into the Winter Classic where they follow teams, but you think there's individuals in hockey that they could do that with, or would hockey allow that?
It's a great question, and I think hockey's tried to do more of it in the past, and the players just aren't as willing. And I know we could talk till we're blue in the face about the culture, and a lot of these guys don't want to single each other out. I heard a story, and you guys may have heard it, that during the Blues Stanley Cup run, the NHL was looking for players to kind of take on a little bit of an individual role in terms of some social media and, being themselves and showing people behind the cameras. And I think it was David Perron that declined the chance to do that. He said, no, we're focused here. So, Dan, I just think that in those other sports, not saying anything wrong about it, but they're willing to expose themselves and be out there more and show the behind the scenes, and you just don't see as much of it in hockey, and I think it really is due to that culture.
We need one on goalies. So
yeah.
With
God,
Jordan
that'd be
Bennington. Imagine if we had behind the scenes of everything that happened with Bennington and Kadri, where we finally knew what happened with Water Bottle Gate.
Yeah, that's got to happen. I mean, I can picture it right now. Goalies on Netflix. Like, who wouldn't be?
Right.
Even if you're not an NHL fan, you'd be watching that, right?
Yeah, no doubt. JR, thanks so much for the time. Have a great weekend, and we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep, see you guys.
Thank you, brother. That is Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider from The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, at the deadline, is there a chance of somebody just making a regular old baseball trade where it's I got this bit of depth, you've got some depth, let's make a deal? That's next on 101 ESPN. Hey, does your home need repairs? Maybe an update or a remodel, but you don't want to pile on debt? Well, check out Together Credit Union's interest-only home equity line of credit. With Together Credit Union's interest-only home equity line of credit, you can borrow up to 90% of the current equity in your home and pay interest-only monthly payments for the first 10 years. Plus, there are no annual fees or prepayment penalties. Together Credit Union's interest-only home equity line of credit offers flexible borrowing, which means you can borrow as much as or as little as you need to make your house a home. And you can pay your balance at any time during the draw period and then borrow it again, which puts you in control of your finances. To learn more about Together Credit Union's interest-only home equity line of credit, stop by a branch or visit togethercu.org. Again, it's Together Credit Union's interest-only home equity line of credit, and it'll be great for you. Learn more about it at togethercu.org. Together Credit Union, federally insured by the NCUA.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals start their 4-game series to close out the first half of the season tonight against the Cubs. 7:15 first pitch on Apple TV+. It'll be Sonny Gray taking on Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs. Hendricks on the season 1-7 with a 7.53 ERA. St. Louis City is also back in action, taking on the Vancouver Whitecaps for the second time in 2 weeks. This time the match will be at 7:30 at City Park. And you can go back to our Dobbstown Auto Centers and listen to the interview with the interim head coach John Hackworth between Randy, Danny, and Brooke. That's our Dobbstown Auto Centers podcast on 101ESPN.com. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and it's harder, from contender to contender. But the one team that jumps out with that is Seattle, because they have so much pitching, and they really need a bat. So yeah, if you're talking about like a guy like Dylan Carlson or someone like that with the excess bats, or even a Jordan Walker, I do think we'll hear his name out there just because young prospect. He hasn't got it going with St. Louis. And, people say, you know what, we think we can turn them around. So that's a possibility for teams, too.
That is Bob Nightingale of USA Today a couple of days ago here on the opening drive on 101 ESPN when asked about a baseball trade. I think we can all agree that a couple of years ago when the Cardinals acquired Jordan Montgomery from the Yankees for Harrison Bader, a couple of major leaguers, both had done good things in their career. One team had depth in the pitching department because the Yankees had acquired Frankie Montas. The Cardinals felt like they had depth. As a matter of fact, at that point, Harrison Bader was on the IL, and it was a baseball trade. And when you think about a team like Seattle, who could use a bat, specifically a left-handed bat, and the Cardinals have 4 of them at the major league level right now, I don't know that the Cardinals want to part with Nootbaar, Burleson, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman. I don't know. But that's just, with all that depth of starting pitching that Seattle has, that's what I'm talking about. The vast majority of trades we see at the deadline during the season are prospects for players. Could you envision, or would it make sense for the Cardinals to make an old-fashioned baseball trade?
Well, I guess my question would be, value-wise, do you think Dylan Carlson would be enough to do, if we're comping that Jordan Montgomery, Harrison Bader trade that happened, is there a player that you think would be a chip that would be similar to that value that you could get something from?
Well, I think normally when you have these baseball deals, like you said, Randy, it's more complementary players. It's not star for star. Right. And it's looking for deficiencies on both sides and saying, player X can help you out, player X comes back to us and helps us out. But you're not talking like big names. It rarely does that happen. And if it does, it's in the off season. It's not in season, which is something to think about. I got to wonder where the Cardinals feel, as analytically based as they are, taking a look at their team and saying, okay, 2/3 of the wins we've had have been against sub-500 teams. The strength of schedule so far is 24th in the majors, which is something to consider. That is going to change in the second half. They're going to have the 4th toughest schedule in the final 70 games of this regular season. 60% of the 40 final 1 games are against playoff teams currently constructed. It's going to be a tough second half. They're going to have to get some help. And I would imagine that with the lack of starting pitching or even pitching depth that they have in the minor leagues, a baseball trade would make some sense for the Cardinals.
And especially because most of their prospects are here. One of the reasons the Cardinal system isn't really highly regarded is because all the kids have made it to the major league level. You aren't going to do anything with Wynn. He's not going anywhere. Walker, let's be honest about it, he's not going anywhere. And like Bob said, you'll hear his name, but he's not going anywhere. But you have so many valuable young players on this team that I don't think you can move. But I wonder about the value now of a guy like Nootbaar. Remember when Oakland wanted him in a Sean Murphy trade, and that was kind of the non-starter for the Cardinals in terms of getting that catcher from the A's who wound up with Atlanta. I wonder if the Cardinals and if Major League Baseball's opinion of a guy like Newt have changed because of his lack of availability.
That's what I was going to say is, what do you think his value is like, considering that he just came back from an oblique injury and he has been injured? So that's another thing the teams will look at. Do you think that that has really affected his value?
I think it has to, right? Because it's 2 years. Now he's never played regularly at the major league level. So if I'm another team,
buyer beware.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
And Tommy Edman too.
No doubt about it.
You know, I'm assuming that his value right now, if you're an opposing team looking at the Cardinals, is diminished because of a severe injury to the wrist. And if you miss that much time, now he is under cost control, doesn't cost you a ton of money, which would give you the check in the positive box. But what are you getting? You know, what kind of bill of goods are you getting? Are you getting a healthy guy or you're not?
Right.
And that's something that you have to consider.
Yeah. Almost inevitably, we'll get a text asking about Goldschmidt and or Arenado. Goldie's got the no trade, and it's my impression that Goldie doesn't really want to go anywhere, especially with the contract at the end of the contract, but his family's here. And with Arenado, you've got 3 years left at a lot of money, the 25, 26, and 27 seasons. And with the way he has generally performed from a power standpoint over the last year and a half, I wonder if another team would want to roll the dice on him. And I really think it is a dice roll with Nolan. I wonder if another team would want to do that.
I can't see that, honestly.
I can't either. I mean, the Dodgers are the team, right?
Yeah.
With the Dodgers, I don't think the Dodgers should do that right now.
Well, here's the thing with the Dodgers. You'd have to say money is not an option. So I don't have to spend their money, but I would assume the way they spend money's not an option. The way they evaluate him is what kind of player is he still?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to look at.
And there are, even for the Dodgers, a finite amount of prospects. If you're the Dodgers, you have, this is your injured list right now with no guarantees that anybody's going to come back to 100%. You've got, let's start with Shohei being on essentially the pitcher's injured list. But then after that, you've got Kershaw, Buehler, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Gonsolin, and May. You've got 7 starters on the IL. If you're the Dodgers, you need, amazingly, starting pitching.
They're going to get Crochet.
Yeah, probably.
They're going to get Crochet. I know that we've talked about it. It would be nice if there was a way, because we got a text in that said you wouldn't trade Walker for Robert Crochet in return. I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't even think that's going to be a possibility, is the thing. The Dodgers are going to get Crochet.
If Crochet is available, I'd have to take a look at it. I mean, we talked about this the last couple of days with Jordan Walker. At least in my mind, I've got to be so overwhelmed that it'd be dumb if I didn't take it.
Yeah.
But that's the only way I give up on him.
And I think we need to reiterate that you have Arenado and Goldie, I think we can all agree, are on the downside. They aren't going to bounce back to their 30-year-old levels, right? And of the Cardinals' top 30 prospects that came out this week in both Baseball America and MLB Pipeline, none of the Cardinals' top 30 prospects are right-handed power hitters.
Yep. That's something to consider.
And he's not a prospect anymore because he's spent too much time. So all of a sudden, Arenado and Goldie aren't on your map anymore. Wilson Contreras is your only right-handed power hitter in the entire organization.
Do you bring Goldschmidt back?
No, not right now. If things change in these last couple of months, you've got August and September and half of July. But right now, I can't do it. I love Paul Goldschmidt. He's one of my favorite all-time players, all-time, because he's such a good guy, and he is. Mr. DeWitt said when the Cardinals got him, he's the perfect Cardinal. But I'm in the business of winning, and I don't think that he helps me win enough. Even if I get him for $3 million a year, I need better production out of first base.
You have a glut of outfielders, too, and there's a guy that can play first base.
Yep.
And that's something to consider as well.
And maybe, too. Maybe that right-handed power hitter. Yep. We're talking about Walker. You got a 6'6" first baseman that's athletic, that has played third base and has good hands. Maybe that's ultimately his spot.
I don't want to speak for Goldie, but in conversations I've had with him, he loves St. Louis. And if there's a deal to be had, I'm sure he would want to stay here in St. Louis.
Yeah, and he tells everybody that around town. Now, I run into so many people that say, I met Paul Goldschmidt. He loves it here. He does charitable events all over town. His family loves that aspect of it, the family atmosphere of the town. The kids are now at an age where they're growing to that level where they're making friends. And it's, sure, they're making $25, $26 million a year, but they're still human beings and they're leading human being lives.
Do you think they'll do what they did with Waino? where it's just year-by-year basis.
I could see that.
I could see that too. And especially Bill DeWitt Jr. loves having future Hall of Famers on his team. And I think Goldie is a future Hall of Famer.
He's right at the cusp. I think the average WAR of a first baseman is around 85, 87. Goldie is right there. At the beginning of the season, I looked it up. He's right there with the guys that are in the Hall of Fame. So he's very, very close to being there.
And by the way, a couple of years ago, after he won the MVP, he went all over the country finding the new bat, working on his swing, worked with Aaron Judge. Nobody works harder at trying to get better offensively. Maybe he can find that magic elixir to get himself going again.
I know a lot of people look at on the field and you're watching the game and you're saying, man, how is he a leader? Because he's not throwing things. He's not vocal in front. He's vocal behind the scenes.
Yeah. He is.
He's helping young guys. I mean, he's doing what you expect a leader to do. And that's also something to consider when you move forward with Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah, safe to say that Marp and Crawford are not going to be back, even with their great leadership abilities.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Coming up, we've got Rocc and Roll here on 101 ESPN.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and this year we decided it was time to make a major upgrade to our home by updating our bathroom. We have this house in U City. It's over 100 years old, and we love it, but we never exactly loved our main bathroom. So we decided to reach out to one of our great sponsors here of 101 ESPN, and that is EMB Granite. EMB Granite's team came to our house for a free consultation, and they came up with a vision of how to really transform our bathroom. My favorite part of working with EMB Granite was stopping by their amazing showroom to explore their large selection of in-stock custom countertops, all of their different cabinet options. Jen was the one who has been working with us, and she has been fantastic. She came up with so many great ideas for us that really fit within our budget, and I'm happy to report that our bathroom is done and it looks gorgeous, and that's thanks to EMB Granite. So go and schedule your free consultation by calling 314-645-9300 or go online at embgranite.com or stop by their showroom today and make sure you mention that I sent you.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
Texture from the 618 asking Randy, explain why no Marp or Crawdaddy next year. And I think as a rational observer, you look at Brandon Crawford, who's 37 years old, has 57 at-bats in the Cardinals' first 90 games. Carpenter is 38 years old, has 95 at-bats in the Cardinals' first 90 games. Those guys were brought in as veteran leaders, back end of the roster guys. Probably, I think if we all look at it rationally, they're 25th and 26th players. They understand that. They've been around a long time, and they know. And they're back for one more shot at a ring. And Mike, I would be shocked if either of them would want to come back next year, actually.
Yeah.
They just want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, though? Because a big part of them coming in is because we know that Nolan Arenado and them have expressed that they wanted to kind of not necessarily give up or relinquish the leadership duties, but to have more voices in the room to kind of help with some of the younger Cardinals players. What do you think of that decision overall?
I think it's been a good decision, and especially when you get down the stretch, when the game changes, when the intensity rises, the game becomes a lot faster. Veteran players are huge. I'll never forget Chris Duncan talking about how in 2006, when the Cardinals got to the postseason, especially with that really young bullpen, the guys who had been through it in 2004, when you play the seventh game and you got to go to Boston and you get swept right away. But people like Edmonds and Pujols and Roland and Izzy went to the young players and said, slow this down and breathe because it happens so fast. And the Cardinals only have one player on their roster, if I'm not mistaken. No, two. Crawford and Contreras that have won championships. You need that in a clubhouse because the game does change dramatically. Well, now, hopefully, you'll get into a situation where you're playing meaningful September games. And I think from a leadership standpoint, correct me if you guys think I'm wrong here, but I think people like Donovan and Burleson have kind of picked up those roles, those leadership roles as everyday players.
And another guy is Mason Wynn for me.
No doubt.
So you have that trio, and there is something to being in the clubhouse and watching and seeing how it's done professionally. And I'm not saying these guys aren't professional. They are very professional, but maybe you pick up something or a conversation or how to help a young player because they're getting helped. That stuff matters. It does matter.
And also, I think another big part of it, too, is Matt Carpenter, the advice that he gave to Alec Burleson. Alec Burleson brought that up, that Matt Carpenter actually helped him this season to really get to this point. So, to me, it's worth it with what we've seen with Alec Burleson. Obviously, whatever Matt Carpenter did or said really helped Burley.
Yep. What do we got on Rock and Roll here today? A brief Rock and Roll, but that's because I handled the clock very well for the first half of the show, then I just let it go all day
Listen,
down the stretch.
It's hard to do it for 3 hours. Don't worry about
I can't pay attention for 3 hours, Matthew.
My big thing is simply last night was another great example that we got to get better about giving people their flowers before they die. And this one specifically goes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You got to start honoring assistant coaches that made an undeniable, indelible mark on the game. Last night, Monty Kiffin passed away. An absolute legend.
Why did you say that, Randy?
He changed defensive football alongside Tony Dungy when they developed the Tampa 2 in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s in Tampa Bay. Personally, as a football fan, I'm not a football fan the way I am now. If the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is not the Hall of Fame, just like incredible defense it is, it changed how I watched football after becoming a fan of offensive football just a couple of years before because of the Rams. And so Monty Kiffin should have been a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt in my mind with his impact that the man was a Hall of Fame level coach. Pro Football Hall of Fame has to get that figured out. Start putting assistant coaches in the Hall of Fame so we could have had a moment where we all got to appreciate Monty Kiffin and the legend that he was.
Yeah, and the Monty Kiffin coaching tree is so tremendous as well. And we had Lovey here, who ran that exact same defense to a Super Bowl in 2001. But there are so many tentacles to what Monty Kiffin brought to the NFL. And people still use, even though you can't use it all the time, people still use that Tampa 2. And there was only one defense that really gave Mike Martz and the Greatest Show on Turf trouble. And that was the scheme that Monty Kiffin initiated in Tampa.
It's what slowed down. It was the first thing that ever slowed down Patrick Mahomes after he got to the NFL because Tampa 2 is something that had disappeared. The Legion of Boom brought in the cover 3, and that had taken over for the last about 10 years of the NFL. And people were like, "How do we stop Patrick Mahomes?" And they were like, "Wait a second, we've had something in our back pocket that we've forgotten that we can use." They brought out the Tampa 2, and it put a top on that Chiefs defense for a whole year before they finally were able to figure it out. And they lost the Super Bowl partially because they couldn't figure figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. We should start recognizing them more beforehand. Is there anybody else that you can think of that?
Well, they missed on Jim Hannafin. Jim Hannafin's the best offensive line coach in the history of the game.
Just to have that's a very special moment where you can finally see them get in, and then they're with their family members.
Jim Johnson.
Yep.
The defensive coordinator for the Eagles was also changed defensive football. Spags, another one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He's a Hall of Fame coach.
Absolutely.
You went 4 for 4 out of the fight, by the way. Did we never give the answers? Did we not?
Yes, we did not give the answers.
I
My
did.
apologies. Randy got them all. The U.S. player that pulled off the dunk of death. It's known in French, by the way, as the Le Dunk de la Mort.
Yeah,
and he pulled that over Frederick Weiss of the French national team. That was in fact Vince Carter. Ryan Suter has been bought out by the Wild and by the Stars. Mark McGwire is in fact the only player in Major League Baseball history to tally 50 home runs in both the NL and AL. It was 52 for the Athletics, and then obviously 70 for the Cardinals. Jim Thome is the closest player ever other than him. He had 52 in the AL, 47. Greg Vaughn's career high in the AL was only 39 home runs.
Wow, okay.
But he did pass 50 in the NL. And number 4, which AL club holds the record for being no-hit the fewest times in Major League Baseball history? It's not the Rays, despite being the most recent AL team. It is, in fact, the Kansas City Royals. Only 2 times in their history have the Royals been no-hit.
How about that? Royales with cheese.
I would have gone with the Rays.
Yeah, it makes sense. The Rays have actually been no-hit 6 times. They were really, really, really bad at first.
Yeah, they were.
They were really bad.
Good. Great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Have a good weekend.
Pleasure, everybody.
Brooke, did you have fun today?
Yes.
What are you going to do this weekend? Do you have some fun planned? Want to do a game?
Well, I was telling Dan, because Dan asked me this as well. I said, most of my weekends now are doing house stuff. So we have to fix our landscaping.
Oh, have fun doing that.
We don't have green thumbs, Randy. We're not doing great with our plants in our yard. So we're trying to figure that out.
There's people that drive around trucks that say like landscaping on the side.
I don't, but they're very expensive is what I've learned. They're very expensive.
I'm just saying.
I also figured out the other day that one of the biggest flexes in life is that if you have really good landscaping, that's how you really show off money and wealth.
Good
Didn't
idea.
know that.
Yeah.
I feel
awesome
like
job, Daniel.
Oh, you too.
That's a great Danny Mac. You got a fun weekend planned?
Pleasure.
Play some golf. Yeah, at some point. That's what I'll be doing. How about you?
I'm going to head to tomorrow. I'm doing the doubleheader, but not the doubleheader. I'm doing baseball during the day, soccer at night.
Nice.
Ooh.
Well, enjoy it.
I will.
You and Patrick?
Enjoy it. And Katie.
Oh, good.
Everybody's coming along. We thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of the show. For all of us until Monday morning at 7, don't just have a great weekend. Have an American weekend.